Chapter 1177, Eccentric Training Regimes in the Elder Hall of the Combat Master Hall. Hall Master Xing has gone to find Principal Zhong? Division Head Wei frowned. Division Head Liao nodded. Indeed. If I'm not mistaken, Principal Zhong should have started training our combat masters by now. With Principal Zhong's help, I am reassured. Even average master teachers in the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy have become experts on par with us, combat masters. After just a few sessions of tutelage, his capabilities are truly nothing short of being phenomena. My thoughts exactly. It might just be 3 short days, but with his help, the fighting prowess of our 20 candidates would surely advance by leaps and bounds. Perhaps, we might really be able to bring about a miracle this time around, Division Head Liao remarked. Having interacted with the Shenzhen faction previously, he had a clear understanding of how frighteningly effective Zhong Xian's teachings could be. In just a few short months, not only was the fighting prowess of the Shenzhen faction enhanced significantly, their comprehension of combat had also achieved a level comparable or perhaps even exceeding theirs. Shall we secretly take a look at how the training is going? Division Head Wei proposed out of curiosity. Secretly take a look. UN. To be honest, I'm interested to see how Principal Zhong intends to train that lot. If we could learn a thing or two from him, we could emulate his methods and groom generation after generation of powerful combat masters. Division Head Wei stroked his beard with an excited gleam in his eyes. Your words do make sense. All right, let's head over there together. Moved by the idea as well, Division Head Liao stood up. The training regimes that Zhong Xian had prepared for the combat masters were not confidential, and as a division head of the Combat Master Hall, it was not a big deal for them to watch over the training of the combat masters anyway. Thus, the duo hurriedly made their way over to the training hall. Why is the door open? The first thing that they noticed upon arriving in the vicinity of the training hall was that its massive doors were wide open. Typically speaking, when a training session was in place, the doors should have been tightly shut. Glancing at one another in confusion, the duo walked into the training hall, only to find that there was not a single silhouette to be found in the vast room. It was as if the 20 candidates had vanished into thin air. Where are they? The 2 division heads looked at one another in bewilderment. They had been informed earlier that the special training would be conducted in the training hall, so they had expected to see a lecture when they walked in. But did they change the location at the last moment or something? The duo scanned every nook and cranny of the training hall, but none of the 20 candidates were in sight. A moment later, Division Head Wei raised his finger toward one of the isolated chambers and said, "Why don't we ask the cleaner over there? He might know a thing or two." Following Division Head Wei's finger, Division Head Liao saw a cleaner dressed in dirty clothes scrubbing a toilet bowl within the isolated chamber earnestly. "This friend over here, did you happen to see a group of combat masters train, Ing?" Before Division Head Wei could finish his words, the cleaner scrubbing the toilet bowl suddenly turned around, and upon getting a clear look of the other party's face, his lips suddenly began twitching. He was one of the candidates who would be representing their combat master hall in the friendly spa, Shahao. Through the exceptionally vast capacity and dense zhenqi that Shahao possessed, he had become a famous figure throughout the combat master hall. For such a figure to be scrubbing toilet bowls, and not to mention, the friendly spa was only 3 days away. He should have been cultivating at that moment. Upon seeing the duo, Shahao quickly clasped his fist respectfully. "Division Head Wei, Division Head Liao. What are you doing here? Where are the rest? Didn't Hall Master Xing invite Principal Zhong to lecture you all?" Unable to hold back his shock, he shot straight to the question at hand. "This is the training regime that Zhongsha has set for me. He has ordered me to clean every single toilet bowl in the Combat Master Hall within 3 days, Shahao replied. Clean all of the toilet bowls in the Combat Master Hall within 3 days? The 2 division heads widened their eyes in shock. All in all, there were more than 10,000 people in the Combat Master Hall, and the visitors from the Shenzhen faction added another 10,000 to the number. In order to house 20,000 men simultaneously, it was a given that there were many public facilities. Even by the lower estimates, there had to be at least 1,000 toilet bowls throughout the Combat Master Hall. Was it even possible to scrub so many toilet bowls within 3 days? Taking a step back, even if it could be done, what about the friendly spa? Did Xiahao not need to cultivate? That's right. Furthermore, he has strictly ordered that I can only use this tool in the cleaning, Xiahao said as he raised the item in his hand. The sight of that item left the eyelids of the two division heads twitching wildly. Astonishingly, what was in the other party's hand was not a scrubbing brush or anything of that sort but a feather duster. The softness of a feather duster made it suited for cleaning dust, but to clear off the grime and filth that was firmly attached to the toilet bowl. Could it be done? Pardon me, division heads, but I don't have much time to spare. I have to finish scrubbing all of the toilet bowls within 3 days, or else a pitiful fate will be awaiting me. I have to get to work now. After saying those words, Xiahao decisively turned away from the two and continued scrubbing the toilet bowl before him diligently. Ah. All right then, we won't trouble you any longer. That. Do you know where the other combat masters are? Division head Wei asked. Without raising his head, Xiahao replied, Jiao Tan is busy smacking flies buzzing around the bathroom outside, and Qin Xiao is trying to catch birds. As for the rest, I'm not too sure. However, they should be within the vicinity, so you can try looking for them. Smacking flies. Catching birds. The bodies of the two division heads swayed from side to side as the vision before them abruptly darkened. Shouldn't they have been listening to a lecture at this very moment? Weren't the combat masters supposed to be attending a crash course to raise their fighting prowess as much as possible over the next 3 days? But, scrubbing toilet bowls, smacking flies, and catching birds. It was as if the world had gone bonkers. Perplexed, the duo walked out of the training hall with confusion clearly written on their faces. They were intending to search for the fly-smacking Jiao Tan and bird-catching Qin Xiao when they saw a young man following behind a female combat master with a bright smile on his face. Big sister, don't leave. Why don't we explore the intricacies of the human body together? Pa. Hey. If you are unwilling, just say so. There's no need to resort to violence. That big brother over there, are you interested in exploring the intricacies of the human body together? Scram. Roger that. Upon seeing this sight, Division Head Wei subconsciously turned his gaze to Division Head Liao, and just as he had expected, the latter's lips were twitching wildly, and his face was so reddened that it seemed as if he would burst into tears at any moment. If I'm not mistaken, that young man over there is your student, Lu Jianling, right? That's indeed my student. He has always been a rather shy and introverted person, so why would he be chasing after ladies and uttering such brazen words? Not to mention, why in the world is he chasing after men as well? Division Head Liao covered his face from the utter shame as he instinctively walked away in a different direction. He was afraid that his student would actually run up to him and invite him to explore the intricacies of the human body together. His old heart would not have been able to take that blow. On the other hand, Division Head Wei looked at the sight a little longer and gulped down a mouthful of saliva before catching up with Division Head Liao. The duo continued walking forward, and before long, they saw a young man standing before a tree, driving his zhenqi furiously. He seemed to be undergoing some kind of intense training. This should be Dong Rui from the Guardian Division. He has managed to temper his physical body to an astonishing degree, such that swords and sabers will struggle to leave a scratch on his body, Division Head Wei remarked with a nod. It was gladdening to see someone normal among the insanity. Otherwise, if they were to continue seeing more madness before them, they feared that they would suffer a mental breakdown soon. Division Head Liao heaved a sigh of relief. He was just about to continue speaking when Dong Rui suddenly finished conditioning himself. He began scrambling up the tree with his 4 limbs, and upon reaching the very top, he let go. Paji. He fell head first into the ground, reminiscent of a carrot planted in the earth. Putong. Dong Rui had to struggle a fair bit before he was able to pluck himself out. He applied some medicine on himself before walking up to the tree once more, conditioning his body, and repeating the cycle. Paji. Once again, he fell head first to the ground, and this time, blood sprayed out of his head. The 2 division heads felt as if they were going insane. What were they doing instead of training? These combat masters were geniuses who they had specially picked out to participate in the friendly spa, and the combat master hall had high expectations of them. Everyone was waiting for them to bring glory back to the combat master hall, And yet, all of them had suddenly gone insane at this crucial moment. Proceeding forward, they encountered more and more bewildering sights. One was sprawled within a bathing vat, acting like a corpse. One had buried himself in the ground, not moving in the least. It did not take long for them to find all 20 geniuses, but it was like all of them had become psychopaths, carrying out actions that no sane human would ever do again and again. Instead of the arrival of a miracle that they had anticipated, it seemed like a cataclysm had struck their combat master hall instead. Hall Master Xing, what is going on? Unable to take it any longer, the two division heads headed straight to Hall Master Xing's residence, only to see the latter staring blankly into the sky. Hall Master Xing turned around to look at them with a deeply helpless look. I have no idea either. It was then that the duo realized that the head of the usually dashing Hall Master Xing was completely ruffled like a bird's nest. There were dark bags beneath his eyes, as if he had not slept for a few days straight. Principal Zhong is the one who made the call, and he requested that I not interfere in the training regime. I also have no idea what he's up to either. At this moment, Hall Master Xing was truly on the verge of a mental breakdown. He had thought that Zhongxian would put their combat masters through some special intensive training, but the moment that he saw the papers listing the training regimes, he had nearly lost his mind. Special it was indeed, but this was way too freaking special. Are you sure that this can still be considered training? Are you secretly plotting the downfall of our Qingyuan Empire Combat Master Hall instead? You don't know either. Then, are we going to just let him fool around like that? Division Head Wei exclaimed. I tried talking to him about the matter too, but he said that, if we don't trust him, we should have just trained the candidates ourselves. I also hesitated for very long before deciding to leave it be, Hall Master Xing replied with a bitter smile. In his many years as the head of the Combat Master Hall, this was the first time that he had seen something as mystifying as this. But since he had asked for Zhongxian's help, it was only right for him to trust the other party. But the two division heads wanted to protest, but they had no idea where they should start. A long time later, Division Head Wei finally found the words to speak. Is Principal Zhong really training our combat masters? I have no idea either, but my thought is that since it's unlikely that 3 days of training by us will make any substantial difference in the results of the friendly spar, therefore, we might as well just allow him to do as he pleases. Perhaps, who knows? There might really just be a miracle. While Hall Master Xing said those words, his shaking head was more than enough to show his skepticism. Their Qingyuan Empire Combat Master Hall had been in a weak position for a very long time. While they would be dispatching their greatest geniuses to participate in the friendly spar, it was still questionable whether or not they would be able to obtain even 2 slots. Since that was the case, they might as well place their bets on Zhongxian and pray for a miracle. Considering the unthinkable feats that the latter had pulled off in the past, it was not out of the question. It seems like this is our only option at the moment. Division Head Wei took a look around, but Zhongxian was not in sight, so he asked, "Oh right, where is Principal Zhong?" He just obtained his 7-star physician and appraiser emblem, and he said that he would be paying a visit to the Master Teacher Pavilion to apply for his promotion to 7-star Master Teacher, Hall Master Xing replied. Promotion to 7-star Master Teacher? The duo was slightly taken aback by those words. We invited you to train our combat masters, and yet, after turning all of them into lunatics, you even ran off to the Master Teacher Pavilion by yourself. Isn't this a little too much? The two division heads looked up into the sky as well, and a very long time later, a deep sigh escaped from their mouths. Just as Hall Master Xing had said, Zhongxian was currently in the Master Teacher Pavilion. To him, training the combat masters was just a minor issue. What was more important for him was to be promoted to 7-star Master Teacher. He needed that promotion in order to vie for the nomination slot to the Sanctum of Sages and find Luo Ruoxin. This was the only chance he had. Otherwise, once Luo Ruoxin was married in the 3rd month of the next year, everything would be over. Walking through the vast hall of the Master Teacher Pavilion, Zhongxian headed straight for Wu Shi's residence. Due to him having cleared the Empire building, he could apply for his promotion to 7-star Master Teacher directly without undergoing the examination. It would be troublesome to explain that matter to the others, so he decided to find Wuxia immediately and have the latter clear it for him. Before Zhongxian could enter Wuxia's residence, he heard the voice of an old man from within the room. Wuxia, if it wasn't for Vice Pavilion Master Tian noticing the trap laid by the otherworldly demons, our Master Teacher Pavilion might not exist. Yet, you had him captured over the trivial matter of slandering a 6-star Master Teacher. Don't you think that you are making a mountain out of a molehill? Chapter 1178. Today, one of us shall fall. Pavilion Master Go, Hall Master Xing of the Combat Master Hall and I witnessed this matter with our own eyes. There is concrete evidence to prove it. Wuxia anxiously exclaimed. You said that there is concrete evidence to prove this matter. The old man spoke once more. As a master teacher, you should know better than to blindly trust your eyes. You have to carefully investigate the issue in order to discern fact from fiction, not to mention, this matter involves a Vice Pavilion Master. If we go by your judgment and rule that our Vice Pavilion Master attempted to frame a 6-star Master Teacher, what will become of the reputation of our Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion? This. Wuxia's voice grew slightly hesitant. In order for the local Master Teacher Pavilion to maintain order in the region, reputation was of utmost importance. If it was made known that a Vice Pavilion Master had tried to oppress a lower-ranked Master Teacher, the credibility of the entire Master Teacher Pavilion would be doubted, and they would become the laughingstock of the whirl. Wuxia paused for a moment before responding. Pavilion Master Go, I understand that our reputation is important, but even more so is fairness. As Master Teachers, we should conduct ourselves properly and remain neutral. If we side with our own Master Teachers for the sake of our reputation, how can we be qualified to pass judgment upon others? It was true that the reputation of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion would be sullied if Vice Pavilion Master Tian was convicted for the current accusations. However, if it was discovered that their Master Teacher Pavilion had willfully sided with their own men, it would cast doubt over the leadership of the Master Teachers over the Master Teacher continent. Fairness? Are you trying to tell me that your words are the very embodiment of fairness? What I heard is that Vice Pavilion Master Tian has been wronged instead. The old man harumphed coldly. Tian Qing, recount the matters that happened yesterday to me once more. Yes. Vice Pavilion Master Tian said from within the room. It's like this. King Zhongqing is in charge of the defenses of the city, and after capturing the vice head of the Hongyuan Empire Poison Hall, he managed to acquire critical intelligence regarding the Poison Hall and successfully led an expedition to eradicate it. On top of that, he also learned that there was a particularly formidable poison master known as Sun Qiong hiding within the city, and there was a very good chance that the latter's existence could place mankind in danger. After investigating the matter, he found that Sun Qiong happened to be Zhongxian's butler. Given that a master teacher was involved in the matter, he knew that he could not act recklessly, so he came to seek my assistance in the matter. Thus, I invited Zhongxian over to King Zhongqing's manor in my name, but not only did Zhongxian refuse to cooperate with the investigation, he even forcefully freed Sun Qiong and made a move against the both of us. Made a move against the both of you? Wuxia's eyes shot up in displeasure. Vice Pavilion Master Tian, don't you think that your words are ludicrous? Principal Zhong is a Saint 2 Dan Pinnacle cultivator whereas you are a half-leaving Aperture Realm expert. Are you trying to tell us that Principal Zhong is so foolish as to pick a fight against someone more than 2 cultivation realms stronger than him? He could not tell anyone about Zhongxian's identity as a celestial master teacher, but that did not mean that he would not fight against anyone who dared to frame him. The one who has attacked me wasn't Zhongxian himself but a cauldron in his possession. The cauldron is a Saint intermediate tier artifact, and it wields strength comparable to mine, Vice Pavilion Master Tian replied. That only discredits your story further. Despite being a master teacher, you aren't able to match a mere Saint intermediate tier cauldron? As powerful as a Saint intermediate tier artifact was, without a person to drive it, it was unable to bring out its full prowess. For someone as powerful as Vice Pavilion Master Tian to be unable to match a mere Saint intermediate tier artifact, wasn't this a joke in itself? Fine. Vice Pavilion Master Tian harumphed coldly. Since you insist that I have attempted to frame Zhongxian, let me ask you this. Do I have any reason to pick on him? This. Wuxia are stumped. I am the vice head of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, as well as a 7-star master teacher. In terms of standing, he's nowhere near me. Do you think that it makes any sense for me to put my career as a master teacher on the line just to deal with a mere principal of a master teacher academy whom I have no connections whatsoever with? Vice Pavilion Master Tian argued. This was exactly what had confounded Wu Shu as well. He could not understand why Vice Pavilion Master Tian would make a move against Zhongxian either. A person who was seemingly superior to Zhongxian every way, at least on the surface. He should not have any reason to deal with Zhongxian. This was the missing piece of the puzzle that he had been struggling to find all along. Wu Rufeng, what do you have to say? Pavilion Master Go said coldly. While I have no idea why Vice Pavilion Master Tian would deal with Principal Zhong, it's a fact that King Zhongqing and Vice Pavilion Master Tian were making a move on him when we arrived on the scene. If we were just a second slower, Principal Zhong would have been a dead man by now. Countless master teachers and combat masters witnessed that with their own eyes, so if Pavilion Master Go doubts my words, I can bring them over to testify before you. Furthermore, the vice head of the Poison Hall whom Vice Pavilion Master Tian spoke about has already confessed that King Zhongqing and Vice Pavilion Master Tian forced him into complying with them to frame Principal Zhong. Is the vice head of the Poison Hall you spoke about Mingzhen? Pavilion Master Go asked. That's right. Pavilion Master Go harumphed coldly. He died last night. He's dead. But he's in the prison cell of the Master Teacher Pavilion. How could he have died? Wu Shu could not believe his ears. How am I supposed to know that? You were the one who captured him, and now you are telling me you do not know why he died in the Master Teacher Pavilion. Don't you think that you should be the one explaining the matter to me? Pavilion Master Go replied in a frosty tone. Pavilion Master Go, are you doubting me? Wu Shu's eyes widened in disbelief. It's not that I want to doubt you, but think about what has happened. Do you think that it's possible for me to not doubt you? You claimed that Chen Zhe has betrayed the Master Teacher Pavilion and requested for permission to capture and investigate him, and I granted you permission for that. Yet, he passed away in your custody. Given how secure the Master Teacher Pavilion is, there is no one who could have gotten to him other than you. If you had not used torture on him to force a confession, how could he have died? Furthermore, I have also investigated the affairs of that Zhongxian, and you seem to have gone through a life-and-death situation with him. Considering the deep ties between the both of you, I cannot help but suspect that you are intentionally siding with him in order to protect him, perhaps even making a false testimony in his favor. Pavilion Master Go harumphed. It hasn't been long since you have been promoted to a Vice Pavilion Master, so I understand that you might be eager to prove yourself to replace Vice Pavilion Master Tian. But no matter what you do, you need evidence. Look at the mess you have caused, and you still expect me to believe you. Seeing that Pavilion Master Go was doubting him, Wu Shu anxiously explained himself. I swear on my name as a master teacher that I have been perfectly impartial in this matter, and I have no interest in usurping Vice Pavilion Master Tian's position. Enough. I do not wish to talk about this matter anymore. I don't care how the both of you fight with one another, but you had better not do anything that will harm the reputation of our Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion. Pavilion Master Go interjected coldly. It has been 500 years since I became the Pavilion Master, and while I have not accomplished anything outstanding my time, I have not erred in my leadership either. It's already nearing my retirement date, and I hope to leave the Master Teacher Pavilion in peace. I do not want to retire as a laughingstock of the town, so I do not want to see anything happen till then. You hear me? Not expecting Pavilion Master Go to suddenly pin such a severe accusation on him, Wu Shu panicked. Pavilion Master Go, I am really not doing this for power. While I have braved through a life-and-death situation with Principal Zhong, I would not dream of willfully siding with him over something as important as this. Enough. I have already said that I do not want to interfere in the matters between the both of you. You can do whatever you like, just do not make our Master Teacher Pavilion appear to be a joke before others. But, indignant, Wu Shu gritted his teeth, but seeing that Pavilion Master Go was unwilling to listen to his words, he could only clench his fists and reluctantly reply. Fine, I understand. Yuan, that had better be the case. All right. Send a man to bring Zhongxian over here right now to clear things up. If he's willing to listen, I can still consider giving him the benefit of the doubt. Otherwise, just on the grounds of insubordination alone, I will have him condemned for his entire life. Pavilion Master Go instructed. However, before he could finish his words, a voice suddenly sounded. There's no need to send anyone. I'm already here. Following which, a young man walked in. Zhong Xian. He had only gone there to take the 7-star master teacher examination, but who would have thought that he would hear those words instead? He could almost feel his blood boiling from the rage within him. Initially, he had thought that Pavilion Master Go had only been blinded by the words of Vice Pavilion Master Tian, but as he listened on, he had realized that the other party was just an incompetent superior who did not want the pot to be stirred so that he could retire in peace. Horrified by Zhong Xian's sudden arrival, Wuxia exclaimed in shock, "Principal Zhong." From the earlier conversation, he could tell that Pavilion Master Go was deeply displeased with Zhong Xian. This was truly a bad moment for the fellow to appear. If Pavilion Master Go were to pass a judgment on the fellow in a rage, the fellow could very well be doomed. At the same time, a cruel glint flashed across Vice Pavilion Master Tian Qing's eyes as he hurriedly stepped forward and said, "Pavilion Master Go, this young man over here is the person who framed me, the principal of the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy, Zhong Xian." "You are Zhong Xian?" Pavilion Master Go narrowed his eyes threateningly. "How dare a mere 6-star master teacher like you eavesdrop in our conversation? You audacious brat." "Audacious? I don't think I am as audacious as you are," Zhong Xian replied with a voice that was freezing like a winter's night. "What did you say?" Pavilion Master Go smacked the table out of rage as a powerful aura burst forth menacingly from him. As the head of the regional master teacher pavilion, his standing was unmatched by anyone in the Qingyuan Empire. Yet, a pesky principal of a small master teacher academy had actually dared to speak to him in such a manner. This was a complete lack of respect for his elders, a blatant breach of the formalities among master teachers. "Don't you have a clear idea as to what I just said?" Facing the other party's wrath, Zhong Xian did not show a hint of worry or anxiety. With eyes filled with nothing but apathy, he said, "After so many years, you should know Wuxia's temperament better than anyone else. Vice Pavilion Master Tian has aided King Zhongqing in a scheme against me and my butler, and yet, instead of investigating the matter, you chose to side with Vice Pavilion Master Tian blindly in order to protect yourself, even coming over here to berate and put down Wuxia. Are you really that blind, or has water gotten into your head? How in the world can the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion be so unfortunate as to get a pavilion master as incompetent and useless as you?" Principal Zhong, not expecting the good-tempered Zhong Xian to actually criticize Pavilion Master Go openly, Wuxia was nearly scared of his wits. From the very start, Pavilion Master Go already had a bad impression of the other party. After saying these words, there was no longer room for reconciliation. "You impertinent scoundrel, how dare a mere 6-star master teacher like you insult our Pavilion Master? Pavilion Master Go, I shall have him apprehended for breaching the formalities of master teachers right now and cripple his cultivation." Vice Pavilion Master roared furiously as he charged forward to nab Zhong Xian. "Qing Tian, you dare!" Wuxia bellowed furiously as he quickly stepped forward to protect Zhong Xian. "There's no need for that," Zhong Xian replied coldly as he waved his hand lightly. Peng! Before Vice Pavilion Master Tian could process what was going on, he was already smacked into the wall. Following which, Zhong Xian slowly advanced step by step, and with a gaze as sharp as daggers, he spoke with a voice that resounded clearly throughout the entire Qingyuan city. "I have walked here step by step from Tianqian Kingdom, and no one has ever dared to frame me for anything before. I, Zhong Xian, as a 6-star master teacher and the principal of the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy, hereby request permission from the headquarters to crash the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion. Today, one of us shall fall." Chapter 1179. It seems he is called Zhong Xian in the appraiser hall. "How is it? My medicine is quite effective, right?" In the lounge, Elder Qi spoke to the young man before him with a smile. Looking into the mirror and seeing that his dashing appearance had finally been restored, the young man heaved a sigh of relief and clasped his fist. "Elder Qi, thank you for your help. If not for your assistance, who knows how long it would have taken for me to recover." There's no need to stand on ceremony. It's my responsibility as a physician to help those in need, Elder Qi replied kindly. Zhou Xiao, you really mustn't act recklessly in the future. Don't push yourself to do what is beyond your capability. Being embarrassed is just a small matter, but it would truly be a huge disaster if you were to lose your identity as an appraiser over it, guild leader Mu advised worriedly. It went without saying that the young man was Zhong Zhouxiao. The previous night, while the poison that Zhong Xian had prescribed him was effective in eliminating the spirit that had taken root within him, it had caused his face to swell, leaving him unable to meet anyone. Thus, he could only stay overnight in the appraiser hall. That morning, the swelling had still shown no signs of subsiding, so he could only invite the old guild leader of the physician guild, Elder Qi, over to treat him. While Elder Qi's enemy wielded great influence, considering that it was in the middle of the day and the master-teacher pavilion was in the vicinity, his enemy would surely not be so brazen as to assault him at that moment. I understand. Zhong Zhouxiao nodded in response. He had stepped out in the hope of winning the respect of others by deciphering the seal on the painting, only to end up leaving himself in a pitiful state. When he had looked into the mirror and seen how his dashing face had been warped hideously, just recalling the matter was enough to send tears to his eyes. It was fortunate that he had been in the appraiser hall, so none of his fans had been able to see the state that he was in. Otherwise, he would have been too embarrassed to walk on the streets of Qingyuan City ever again. Of course, more important was the rule surrounding appraisers that only allowed them to make 3 appraisal errors in their entire career. While the affair yesterday had not really been considered an appraisal, it had happened before many eyes, and once others learned of the matter, it would become a stain on his records. It's all because of that Zhong Xian. He clearly knew how to decipher the seal, but he chose not to speak just so to embarrass me. Recalling that seemingly innocent yet revolting smile of that fellow, rage swiftly surged through Zhong Zhouxiao's veins. That fellow had already embarrassed him once on the heart-tempering bridge, and he had been banking on that matter to vie back some dignity. Yet, who would have expected that he would be beaten further down into the ground? He must have done it intentional, no doubt about it. As innocent and honest as that fellow looked on the surface, his instincts told him that the other party had done it intentionally to humiliate him in public. As stifled as Zhong Zhouxiao was, as a 7-star master teacher, he was still able to conceal his emotions perfectly, so neither Elder Qi nor guild leader Mu noticed his inner thoughts. Elder Qi, can you tell me what poison my face is afflicted with? Zhong Zhouxiao asked. It's a particularly potent poison, possibly reaching the level of grade 7. If it was not for the fact that I have been studying poison for the past few years, I might not have been able to treat you, Elder Qi replied with a frown. It was not for no reason that he had chosen to flee to Qingyuan City after he had been poisoned by his enemy. He had heard that a poison hall was located there, so he had decided to try his luck. In the 20 years he had spent there, while he had failed to cure his poison, he had managed to pick up several means concerning poisons through interacting with a few local poison masters, which had allowed him to suppress the poison within him considerably. Thanks to that, he had been able to survive long enough to meet Zhong Xian. His experiences had granted him a deep insight into poison. As long as a poison was not particularly potent, he would be able to resolve it with ease. Hearing those words, Zhong Zhouxiao could not help but mutter aloud in astonishment, the prescription that Zhong Shi gave me was actually a poison? Could it be that Zhong Shi is a poison master? The poison hall maintained a strict confidentiality over their poison formulas, so for Zhong Xian to prescribe one to him so easily. Could it be that he was a poison master? Hearing a familiar name, Elder Qi could not help but ask, may I know who the Zhong Shi you mentioned is? Ah, Zhou Xiao must be referring to the 6-star master teacher from the Hongyuan Empire who has recently arrived in our city, Zhong Xian, guild leader Mu replied. Zhong Xian? You all know him too. He's my benefactor. He's truly an incredible figure, isn't he? Not only does he wield phenomenal capabilities in the way of medicine, which far exceed my own, more importantly, he holds compassion in his heart. There's no way a person like him could be a poison master, Elder Qi replied. Benefactor? His capabilities in the way of medicine far exceed yours. Zhong Zhouxiao was dumbstruck by those words. That fellow has a soul depth higher than me. Fine, I'll accept it. That fellow's capability as an appraiser is higher than mine. Fine, I'll accept that, too. But for his capability in the way of medicine to be more formidable than mine as well. Just who is the 7-star master teacher here? Ever since meeting that fellow, it seems like I have been leaping from one nightmare straight into another. Zhong Zhouxiao heaved a sigh of relief. It's fortunate that my master teacher rank is higher than his, or else I would really be utterly outmatched by him. But before he could finish his words, a voice reminiscent of the rumbling of thunder suddenly boomed in the air. I, Zhong Xian, as a 6-star master teacher and the principal of the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy, hereby request permission from the headquarters to crash the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion. Today, one of us shall fall. Hearing the news, Zhong Zhouxiao nearly collapsed to the ground. What? His intending to crash the Master Teacher Pavilion? Pavilion crashing was the act of challenging an entire Master Teacher Pavilion single-handedly. Whether one had a conflict with a superior Master Teacher or had committed a sin, as long as one had not betrayed humanity, one would be able to absolve oneself of blame through successfully crashing the Master Teacher Pavilion. To put it in simpler terms, once a Master Teacher had successfully crashed a Master Teacher Pavilion that they had a conflict with, the headquarters would no longer pursue the matter. It was just a moment ago that Zhong Zhouxiao had consoled himself with the fact that he still had his Master Teacher rank to fall back on against Zhong Xian, but then the latter suddenly challenged the entire Master Teacher Pavilion. Was this for real? Rushing out of the room, Zhong Zhouxiao saw a Master Teacher emblem flying straight into the sky before floating silently. Deep within the Master Teacher Pavilion, from the Teacher Acknowledgement Hall, a pure and ancient aura surged into the sky and shrouded the emblem. 2 words slowly morphed into appearance. Permission granted. The headquarters actually agreed to his request. A 6-star Master Teacher is going to challenge a 7-star Master Teacher Pavilion branch. Is this for real? This is going to make history. If Zhongshe successfully carries out the pavilion crashing, the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion will lose all shred of its dignity and honor, and Pavilion Master Go will become a laughingstock of all Master Teachers. Guild Leader Mu and Elder Qi were dumbfounded by the happenings before them. Teacher, Elder Qi, as a Master Teacher of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, I have a responsibility to guard its honor as well, so I'll be taking my leave. Farewell. Zhong Zhouxiao clasped his fist before hurriedly flying back to the Master Teacher Pavilion. Pavilion crashing was as good as causing trouble on the home turf of the regional Master Teachers. As one of the Master Teacher of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, he had to rush back to protect it. Zhong Xian, no matter how talented you are, if you wish to bring down the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, you will have to get past me first, Zhong Zhouxiao muttered menacingly with narrowed eyes. It was about time for him to return the favor for the 2 face slaps that he had suffered from the other party. In the Qingyuan Empire Royal Palace, a pig-faced middle-aged man was lying on a bed, panting heavily. King Zhongqing. After being viciously pummeled for an entire night, while he had managed to suppress the poison within his body for the time being, he had nearly been crippled in the process. If not for his superior physical resilience and the abundant supply of pills, he might have long died from the relentless beating. In order to satisfy his needs, more than 20 guards had already had their turn with him, and every single one of their hands had swollen up and was trembling from frailty. Butler Qin walked to King Zhongqing and politely inquired, "Old Master, how are you feeling at the moment?" "I'm still fine for the moment." "Right, remember to get rid of those guards who pummeled me. No one can learn of my condition, got it?" King Zhongqing harumphed callously. "Don't worry, Old Master. I have already made arrangements for that," Butler Qin respectfully replied. "Good." Struggling to sit up, King Zhongqing began meditating to recuperate from his injuries. It took a while before the pain from the beating he had sustained finally alleviated. Turning his head toward Butler Qin once more, he asked, "Is there any news from Vice Pavilion Master Tian?" "I have already informed Pavilion Master Go of the situation surrounding Vice Pavilion Master Tian as you have instructed me to." At this point, Butler Qin could not help but hesitate for a moment before continuing. "Old Master, will Pavilion Master Go really save Vice Pavilion Master Tian? The crime of framing another Master Teacher is a serious matter. Will it really be worthwhile for him to protect Vice Pavilion Master Tian? Don't worry, I know that old man very well. He'll definitely save Vice Pavilion Master Tian, King Zhongqing sneered coldly. As long as Vice Pavilion Master Tian remains in power, no one will be able to touch me. Humph, I will make sure Wu Rufeng and Zhong Xian pay the price for their actions. I see. Butler Qin heaved a sigh of relief. He pondered for a brief moment before asking once more, Old Master, what is Zhong Xian's background? How can a 6-star master teacher manage to corner you and Vice Pavilion Master Tian to such an extent? Regardless of where he is from, there's no way he will be able to escape with his life after offending Vice Pavilion Master Tian. King Zhongqing waved his hand leisurely. You do not have to worry about this matter anymore, he will be a goner soon enough. Most likely, either today or tomorrow, he will be apprehended by the Master Teacher Pavilion and die an untimely death in the cells. However, before he could finish his words, a resounding voice echoed deafeningly in the air, shaking the entire royal palace. I, Zhong Xian, as a 6-star master teacher and the principal of the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy, hereby request permission from the headquarters to crash the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion. Today, one of us shall fall. King Zhongqing was taken aback for a brief moment before hearty laughter boomed from his mouth. He was laughing so intensely that tears were beginning to form in his eyes. A 6-star master teacher like him actually dares to crash the Master Teacher Pavilion? Ha ha ha, this must be the most hilarious joke that I have heard my entire life. His bringing about his own doom, given the prowess of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, not even an 8-star low-tier master teacher would dare challenge it. For a 6-star master teacher to dream of crashing it, he sure likes to dream big. There was no master teacher who was unaware of the difficulty in pavilion crashing. It was a nigh impossible feat to accomplish, and throughout the long history of the master teacher continent, only a small handful of top-notch prodigies had ever succeeded in accomplishing it. Yet, that fellow was so conceited as to think that he could succeed in it. It seemed like they had been worrying over that fellow for nothing. Just as King Zhongqing was laughing heartily, Emperor Chu Tianxing suddenly walked into the room with widened strides. Your Majesty. Overwhelmed with excitement, King Zhongqing immediately reported that Zhong Xian has foolishly decided to crash the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion. With this, his days are already numbered. I have heard the declaration, too. That will be one less worry for us. Emperor Chu Tianxing nodded, but there was still a hint of worry in his eyes. As the emperor of a country, he always considered the worst-case scenario so that he would not be caught off guard by any abrupt changes in the situation. As unlikely as it was, he could not shake off the sliver of doubt nudging his mind. Thus, he could not help himself from asking, is there anyone who has succeeded in crashing the Master Teacher Pavilion before? This? I'm not too sure either. However, we can call Baisha over to ask him, King Zhongqing replied. While the Master Teacher Pavilion did not interfere in the affairs of the empire that they were stationed in, the royal family would usually recruit some unaffiliated master teachers to bolster their ranks. Master teachers had a choice to decide whether they wanted to join the regional Master Teacher Pavilion or not. If they joined, they would be granted several privileges, but in exchange, they would have a responsibility to the Master Teacher Pavilion as well. On the other hand, they could also choose to remain unaffiliated. The Baisha whom King Zhongqing spoke of was one of the unaffiliated master teachers, and he was currently serving as the imperial master teacher of the Qingyuan Empire. Emperor Chu Tianxing nodded before sending a subordinate to invite Baisha over. Not too long later, an elder walked into the room. Baisha, have you heard of any master teachers who have successfully crashed a Master Teacher Pavilion? Hold on a moment, Your Majesty. I'll have my friend look into the matter, Baisha replied. Unaffiliated with the regional Master Teacher Pavilion, he was unable to access its resources as he liked. Thus, he could only ask his friend to do it in his stead. Wang. Not too long later, the jade token in his palm lit up. Baisha swiftly took a look at it before clasping his fist. Your Majesty, there are indeed cases where a Master Teacher Pavilion has been successfully crashed before. There are 3 such men in history who have succeeded in pulling off this feat. 3 men? Hearing that such a small handful of people had succeeded in the past, Both King Zhongqing and Emperor Chu Tianxing heaved a sigh of relief in unison. It had been several dozen millenniums since the Master-Teacher Pavilion first came into existence. Countless geniuses must have come and gone throughout the many years of its existence, and despite that, only 3 had ever successfully crashed a Master-Teacher Pavilion. This was more than sufficient to show the difficulty of the task. Just by this fact alone, it was impossible for Zhong Xian to successfully crash the Qingyuan Empire Master-Teacher Pavilion. Out of curiosity, King Zhongqing asked, "Who are those 3 men? Do you have their names?" "I do. The first goes by the name of Luo Yuntian, and the second is Yuan Shi. They are both the old ancestors of sage clans, the Luo clan and Yuan clan respectively. What about the third person?" Looking at the name written on the jade token, Bai Shi was visibly taken aback for a moment before he stuttered in astonishment. It seems he is called Zhong Xian." Chapter 1180, Zhong Xian vs. Zhong Zhouxiaogudeng. Both King Zhongqing and Emperor Chu Tianxing's hearts skipped a beat. Zhong Xian? Which Zhong Xian? Zhong Xian from Shenyuan Conferred Kingdom. Reading on, Bai Shi's lips began quivering in fear. After which, he became appointed as the principal of the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy. Considering how the previous declaration had resounded throughout Qingyuan City, they would have to have been deaf to not hear it. He had thought that the Zhong Xian person, whoever he was courting his own death, and yet, to think that the other party had a history of successfully crashing a Master-Teacher Pavilion. He had thought that it was an ignorant novice, but it turned out to be an experienced veteran instead. The Master-Teacher Pavilion in the Shenyuan Conferred Kingdom should be a 3-star branch at the very most, so it's not too surprising that he was able to successfully crash it. "Do you think that he'll be able to crash our Qingyuan Empire Master-Teacher Pavilion as well?" King Zhongqing asked hesitantly. "I can't say for sure. However, since he has a previous experience in pavilion crashing, I believe that he should understand how difficult the matter is. Since he dares to challenge the Qingyuan Empire Master-Teacher Pavilion, it is likely that he is confident that he will be able to successfully crash it," Bai Shi replied with an apprehensive frown. Overwhelmed with anxiety, King Zhongqing howled in desperation. There's no way he can succeed. He mustn't succeed. Bai Shi shook his head and sighed deeply. "I don't know whether he'll succeed or not, but regardless of the results, the Qingyuan Empire Master-Teacher Pavilion can be said to be a goner already." Injustice was rife in the world, even within the Master-Teacher Pavilion. Despite the rules put in place by the Master-Teacher Pavilion, it was unable to avoid it altogether. Throughout history, many geniuses had fallen not at the hands of powerful enemies but from the schemes of their peers. The death of every single genius master-teacher was a huge loss to the Master-Teacher Pavilion, and it was in view of this that the Master-Teacher Pavilion had implemented the system of pavilion crashing to serve as an avenue for these geniuses to redress their grievances. Regardless of whether Zhong Xian succeeded or failed, the very fact that the headquarters had agreed to his request meant that the headquarters held Zhong Xian in high regard, and as a consequence of that, the Qingyuan Empire Master-Teacher Pavilion would be effectively plastered with a label of incompetence and mistreating rising prodigies. The headquarters would summon Pavilion Master Go for further investigation, and no matter how the investigation turned out, the latter's reputation would be ruined. "There's no way he can succeed, there's just no way." Pew! King Zhongqing roared with clenched jaws when he suddenly felt a pain in his chest, and fresh blood burst through his lips. He quickly turned to Bai Shi and pleaded, "Quick, beat me. Beat me up with all your might. I need it. I need it right now." Bai Shi. Emperor Chu Tianxing. In the Qingyuan Empire Master-Teacher Pavilion. Seeing the 2 words in the sky, Wu Shi felt his vision darken. He did think that Pavilion Master Go had displayed a lack of fairness in this matter, but still, no matter what, this was where he had grown up and spent several centuries in. He already considered this place his home, and he could not bear to see someone wrecking it. However, he knew that it was already too late to say anything. Given the present circumstances, Zhong Xian had no choice but to choose this course of action. Zhong Xian was only a 6-star master teacher, whereas Pavilion Master Go was a 7-star master teacher, as well as the head of the regional master teacher pavilion. If the latter really attempted to indict him for some crime, The only way Zhongxian could have possibly salvaged himself was through crashing the entire master-teacher pavilion. Wu Shi stood in a daze for a long while, and all the frustrations and helplessness he felt within him eventually materialized in the form of a deep sigh. On the other hand, Pavilion Master Go was so angered by the course of events that his entire body was trembling in rage. Having served 500 years as the head of the Master-Teacher Pavilion, he was already nearing his retirement age. He had thought that he could spend the end of his career in peace and retire with a perfect record, but who would have thought that he would actually end up stepping on a huge landmine at the final juncture? He knew that regardless of the outcome of the pavilion crashing, the Qingyuan Empire Master-Teacher Pavilion's reputation was doomed to be sullied. Do you know what it means to crash a Master-Teacher Pavilion? Suppressing the exploding rage within him, Pavilion Master Go glared at the young man before him with gritted teeth. If looks could kill, the world would have withered there and then. You are asking me that question? Humph. As if there was lightning within his eyes, Zhongxian glared at Pavilion Master Go with a frightening gaze as he spoke. For mankind, I, Zhongxian, descended alone into the subterranean gallery to mend the seal leading to the otherworldly battlefield. For mankind, I hunted down the 10 kings of the Qingtian lineage one after another, averting a potential crisis. For mankind, I have groomed the students of the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy and granted them strength comparable to the combat masters. I have devoted my life to protecting mankind, putting myself in precarious situations time and time again, and I have never regretted my actions. And yet, the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion dares to humiliate me like this. I only hope that the headquarters give me an opportunity to redress my grievances. Since you are incompetent and useless, choosing to cover up for those who have sinned just to avoid stepping into muddied waters, I'll just have to use my own methods to resolve this matter. As for whether you are embarrassed by this matter or not, why should I care about that? Choked by Zhongxian's words, Pavilion Master Go spurted a mouthful of blood. He had thought that the figure whom he was dealing with was a mere 6-star master teacher, and a few words of criticisms would surely have made the latter bow obediently before him. Never in his dreams had he expected the other party to be such a fearless troublemaker. Pavilion Master Go. I hate to say this, but you have really done wrong this time around. Wu Shi closed his eyes and shook his head. While others might have been unaware of it, he knew that the young man before him was a celestial master teacher and a celestial saint, a figure whose standing was on par with Kong Shi's. Putting aside the head of a branch, even the head of the Master Teacher Pavilion headquarters would dare not humiliate the other party in such a manner. Humiliating a figure like that was no different from undermining the authority of the heavens. If the other party were to take such an insult lying down, how could he possibly stand dignified before the masses ever again? Hearing the words spoken by Wu Shi, Pavilion Master Go's face warped in fury, and he spat furiously through gritted teeth. You said that I have done wrong? Humph. Do you think that it'll be that easy to crash our Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion? Sound the bells. Since things had already reached that point, there was no way that he would let the other party get away so easily. Dong 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 dong. Shortly after his bellow, four resounding chimes echoed from the depths of the Master Teacher Pavilion, indicating the arrival of a pavilion-crashing challenger. Hong long long. In just 15 minutes, all of the 6-star and 7-star Master Teachers had returned to the Master Teacher Pavilion with grim expressions on their faces, as if soldiers preparing to march onto the battlefield. There are 2 steps to pavilion crashing. Firstly, the challenger must defeat all the Master Teachers in the Master Teacher Pavilion. Secondly, the challenger must successfully clear the Master Teacher Tower. Currently, all of the 6-star and 7-star Master Teachers in our Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion are present here. If you wish to crash our pavilion, you will have to first trample past on their dignity, at which point, Pavilion Master Go slowly swept over the gathered Master Teachers with his gaze before bellowing authoritatively, Master Teachers of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, someone has come to challenge our dignity. What shall we do? Annihilate him. Make him learn that our Master Teacher Pavilion is not a place for him to fool around. How dare a 6-star Master Teacher act so brazenly as to challenge our Master Teacher Pavilion? See how I eradicate him with a flick of my hand. Upon understanding what was going on, the Master Teachers howled furiously. Seeing that morale was high among the master teachers, Pavilion Master Go nodded in satisfaction. Good. Let's begin then. There were dozens of thousands of 6-star master teachers in the Qingyuan Master Teacher Academy, and their might was no joking matter when combined together. No matter how talented or powerful Zhong Xian was, their forces were more than enough to grind him down eventually. Who will go first? Allow me. As a member of the Master Teacher Pavilion, I wish to strike down the brazen fool who dares challenge us. Shortly after those words were spoken, a loud whiz sounded from the air as a young man descended from the sky. Zhong Zhouxiao. He had just rushed over from the appraiser hall. Good. Pavilion Master Go nodded. Zhong Zhouxiao was the offspring of a sage clan, the Zhong clan. Even though he was just part of the side family, his talent was unrivaled by any other in the Qingyuan Empire. On top of that, as a 7-star master teacher, he had many means up his sleeves. Without a doubt, it would be a piece of cake for him to deal with Zhong Xian. Pavilion Master Go secretly sent a telepathic message to Zhong Zhouxiao. There's no need to show him mercy. Let him learn the heavy price he must pay for daring to crash our Master Teacher Pavilion. Pavilion Master Go, rest assured. I know what to do. With a frown, the aura surrounding Zhong Zhouxiao grew stronger and stronger as he turned to look at the young man not too far away with narrowed eyes. From the moment he met the fellow the day before, the fellow had embarrassed him time and time again. Since that was the case, he would resolve this humiliation once and for all with a fight. A duel between master teachers can come in many forms: a challenge of soul depth, a fight in supporting occupations, a direct showdown, a lecture. Since you are the challenger, I have the right to choose the type of challenge, Zhong Zhouxiao said as he walked confidently toward Zhong Xian before eventually stopping 5 meters in front of the latter. As the offspring of the Zhong clan, he had been able to take many shortcuts in his cultivation, resulting in his state of mind being less tempered than others. However, he was confident that his capabilities in all other aspects were top-notch, and he would not lose to anyone. Since that fellow had dared challenge the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, he would make that fellow learn that he was not to be trifled with. In no mood to entertain Zhong Zhouxiao, Zhong Xian waved his hands impatiently. Speak. I choose a showdown, a duel to pit our strength against one another. Zhong Zhouxiao sneered coldly. A duel was the most direct and easiest way for him to establish his superiority. As a member of the Zhong clan, he had cultivated many powerful battle techniques, so defeating a fellow whose cultivation was beneath his was truly no big deal. Zhouxiao, you mustn't. On the other hand, hearing that Zhong Zhouxiao was proposing to have a direct fight instead, Pavilion Master Go immediately recalled how Zhong Xian had sent Vice Pavilion Master Tian flying with a flick of his hand, so he quickly sent a telepathic message over anxiously. Since even a half-leaving Aperture Realm expert like Vice Pavilion Master Tian was no match for Zhong Xian, how could Zhong Zhouxiao possibly stand a chance? Zhong Zhouxiao shrugged the other party's worries away with a chuckle. Pavilion Master Go, rest assured. No matter what, I am an offspring of the Zhong clan. While my cultivation is only at Saint 3 Dan Embryonic Soul Realm Pinnacle, my fighting prowess has already far exceeded that level. To be honest with you, I have never revealed my true strength before. As there was no peer who was a match for him, there had never been any need for him to use his full strength before. For the first time, he planned on displaying his true strength in public to teach Zhong Xian a lesson. Hong Long. His acupoints burst open simultaneously, and an overwhelming aura abruptly burst forth from him. In the blink of an eye, his cultivation had already exceeded the boundary of Saint 3 Dan Pinnacle, reaching Saint 4 Dan. Primordial Spirit Realm? When did Zhong Zhouxiao achieve a breakthrough? It seems like he has been concealing his true strength all along. To reach the primordial spirit realm beneath 30, he is truly fearsome. He isn't the most formidable genius of our Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion for no reason. There's no way that 6-star Master Teacher can possibly be a match for him. Seeing Zhong Zhouxiao's cultivation surge to Saint 4 Dan in an instant, everyone was taken aback for a moment before admiration and respect seeped into the depths of their eyes. Zhongshe is so dashing. I knew that no one would be able to match him. At some point in time, the millstone bottom lady had arrived in the hall, and hiding behind a pillar, she peeked on Zhong Zhouxiao coyly with stars twinkling in her eyes. She knew that her idol was no ordinary person, but she had not expected him to be so extraordinary. Just by the momentum itself, he had already overwhelmed his opponent many times over. Watching this sight, her massive heart could not help but thump in excitement. Who? Zhong Zhouxiao's aura eventually stabilized at primordial spirit realm primary stage. He clenched his fists tightly as he leisurely stretched his neck, causing crisp jeji sounds to echo in the room. After which, he turned to look at the young man before him with eyes filled with disdain. Let's begin. Are you certain you are ready? Zhong Xian asked indifferently. Indeed. If you wish to use a weapon, feel free to do so. I'll catch anything that you send at me with my bare hands and show you the unbreachable gap between a mortal like you and a true prodigy. Zhong Zhouxiao harumphed coldly as he channeled his zhenqi toward his hands, creating a golden shimmer around them. Weapon? A derisive smile emerged on Zhong Xian's lips as he said impatiently, I don't have time to waste on you. Since you are ready, I'll start now. He was extremely busy. Crashing the pavilion meant that one had to face all the master teachers associated with the master teacher pavilion and overcome the many wills left behind by the preceding master teachers in the master teacher tower. He had no additional time to waste on this fellow. I don't have time to waste on you either, so I'll end you in an instant. Seeing how Zhong Xian was taking him lightly, the final string of sanity within Zhong Zhouxiao's mind finally snapped, and with a furious roar, he dashed forward. You want to end me? Try it then. Without even bothering to dodge Zhong Zhouxiao's attack, Zhong Xian raised his head, and a voice reminiscent of the crisp chime of a bell boomed. Kneel down. Boom. It was as if thunder had rumbled within the room. In an instant, the momentum that Zhong Zhouxiao had built up for his offense vanished without a trace, and before anyone could process what was going on, the other party abruptly plummeted from the sky and crashed to the ground. With his kneecaps firmly fixed onto the ground, Zhong Zhouxiao kneeled before Zhong Xian with indignation and frenzy written on his face. Chapter 1181. You think I dare not pummel you? What? This? How is this possible? Everyone's face warped in shock. The millstone-bottom lady even fell to the ground in utter disbelief. The idol whom she had revered for so long was actually unable to even withstand a bellow from the other party, kneeling down without the slightest bit of resistance. What in the world was going on? In an instant, the faith that she had carried for so long abruptly shattered. No, this can't be. While the crowd was staring at the situation with mouths agape, veins were popping up on Zhong Zhouxiao's forehead as frenzy overtook his mind. He was a genius. A peerless genius in the Qingyuan Empire. How could he be subdued in a single shout? How could he kneel before another man so embarrassingly? You bastard, I'll slaughter you. Roaring furiously, Zhong Zhouxiao pushed his hand against the ground forcefully and flew into the air. After which, he charged forward furiously once more. He had come here to prove himself, not to be humiliated once more. Seeing how the other party was still doggedly coming after him, Zhong Xian bellowed once more. Scram! Pada! Zhong Zhouxiao plummeted from the sky, and this time, his body scrambled on the ground and fled away hurriedly. Zhouxiao, be careful. Your state of mind is your core weakness, and that is why he's using demonic tunes against you. As long as you shut off your hearing organs, you should be able to cope with his offense easily. Pavilion Master Go anxiously sent a telepathic message over. While others were still wondering why Zhong Zhouxiao was listening to Zhong Xian so obediently, Pavilion Master Go had already fully comprehended the situation. Zhong Zhouxiao's greatest weakness was his state of mind, which resulted in him being powerless before the other party's demonic tunes. It could be said that Zhong Xian had already identified Zhong Zhouxiao's weaknesses, and he was playing on them to his advantage. Hearing those words, Zhong Zhouxiao swiftly awakened from his frenzied state, and gritting his teeth, he forcefully shut off his sense of hearing. As expected, the effects of the demonic tune dulled significantly, allowing him to wrestle back control over his body. Then, with a swift leap, he dashed straight toward Zhong Xian to launch an assault. On the other hand, seeing that Zhong Zhouxiao was determined to court his death, Zhong Xian impatiently flicked his finger. Peng! A scream of agony echoed loudly in the air before Zhong Zhouxiao was smacked away like a pesky fly. He crashed right into the wall of the building before dangling weakly up there. Zhong Jiuxiao was no weakling, but he was still far from a match for him. After sending Zhong Jiuxiao flying, Zhong Xian turned his attention back to the remaining master teachers, and placing his hands behind his back, he said, "To save some time, why don't all of you come at me together? He wants to challenge all of us simultaneously. Is he insane? He's only at St. Tudan Pinnacle. Even a leaving Aperture Realm cultivator wouldn't be able to withstand our combined defense." Hearing his words, everyone nearly lost their mind for an instant. Everyone who had gathered within the room was a 6-star master teacher at minimum, and there were more than 10,000 of them there. Even the weakest of them was at half-saint realm, and their combined might was sufficient to tear apart the heavens and earth. Putting aside a mere spiritual perception realm pinnacle cultivator, even a leaving Aperture Realm expert like Hall Master Xing would not have stood a chance against them. "None of you are going to make a move? Fine, allow me to go first then." Too lazy to waste his breath anymore, Zhong Xian walked up to the crowd, and his voice began echoing resoundingly in the minds of everyone gathered in the room. The key to cultivation lies in devotion, and the crux of the devotion to one's path lies in earnestness. Only with an earnest heart can one accomplish. Zhong Xian began lecturing. What is he up to? He seems to be lecturing about the essence of cultivation. Isn't he going to fight us? Why is he conducting a lecture all of a sudden? The crowd had thought that the other party was about to dash right into their midst and fight them with all his might. Yet, contrary to their expectations, not only did he not make a move, he even began imparting an interpretation of cultivation to them, leaving every single one of them dumbfounded. Just as they were perplexed, Pavilion Master Goes anxiously shouted, "Everyone, be careful. He's using the impartation of heaven's will. He's planning on making all of you submit to him." To be honest, Pavilion Master Go was truly feeling deeply frightened at this point. Even a genius as talented as Zhong Jiuxiao, dubbed as the #1 prodigy of the Qingyuan Empire, had ended up falling from a mere bellow from Zhong Xian. From just this, it could be seen that Zhong Xian's soul depth was comparable to his own, if not above it. Such formidable soul depth paired with the impartation of heaven's will. In a group battle, there was no weapon more devastating than this. Even poison masters were not as fearsome as that. Against a poison master, the most one could lose was one's life. However, against a master teacher's impartation of heaven's will, one would lose control of oneself and become the other party's student. Impartation of heaven's will? That does seem to be the case. I want to struggle against him, but what he is saying is really true. If I cultivate according to his words, my cultivation will surely be greatly enhanced within a short period of time. I really couldn't have imagined that there is such an exquisite Zhenqi circulation method in the world. This is too scary, too scary. Hearing Pavilion Master Go's bellow, the crowd immediately attempted to struggle free of Zhong Xian's impartation of heaven's will, but their minds and bodies just would not listen to them. Instinctively, they desired to learn, and the other party's teachings were simply too valuable for them to miss out on. The rest of you, feel free to make a move on him. I'll listen to his words a bit first. Wait a moment. Don't do it now. Let him finish this part before making a move. If any of you dare to touch him, I'll pummel you into the ground. This portion happens to be regarding the flaw of my cultivation. If I can resolve this problem, I will surely be able to make a breakthrough to become a 7-star high-tier master teacher. Such words could be heard amid the crowd. In the blink of an eye, the tense atmosphere had abruptly calmed down, turning into a leisurely academic exchange. Watching the inconceivable sight before him, Pavilion Master Go felt crazed. He did not even notice it when he plucked out several strands of his beard. My brothers, wake up. He's crashing our master teacher Pavilion. This isn't the time to be learning from him. Pavilion Master Go, at this rate, all of the master teachers of our Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion are going to become his student. Vice Pavilion Master Tian exclaimed with a pale face. He had just barely recovered from the other party's previous blow when he saw such a sight before him, and he was nearly shocked speechless. I know, but there's no way to break his impartation of heaven's will unless he makes a mistake in his teachings. Pavilion Master Go's face reddened in anxiety. The impartation of heaven's will was a resonance induced by the alignment of one's teachings with the essence of the world. If there was the slightest error in one's teachings, the resonance would immediately be dispelled, and the crowd would recover from the trance they were in and regain their rationality. Are we to wait helplessly for him to make an error? Will he even make an error? Since he dares use the impartation of heaven's will, he must have done his homework in advance, Vice Pavilion Master Tian said anxiously. But what else can we do? Simple. We should just have Zhong Jiuxiao assault him from behind. In any case, they were supposed to be dueling with one another, and besides, he was the one who asked everyone to go at him a moment ago. Thus, this cannot be considered an unfair move. As long as we pull it off, we'll be able to break his impartation of heaven's will, and by then, it will be impossible for him to successfully crash the pavilion, Vice Pavilion Master Tian sneered coldly. Pavilion Master Go hesitated for a brief moment before nodding. Very well. If he, as the head of the Master-Teacher Pavilion, were to break the other party's impartation of heaven's will forcefully, he would surely be despised and mocked for his actions. However, it was different for Zhong Jiuxiao. In the first place, he was supposed to be in a duel with Zhong Xian, and as fellow peers, he did not have to pay as much attention to his standing compared to Pavilion Master Go. Thus, it would not be a big deal if he made a move. Having made up his mind, Pavilion Master Go quickly sent a telepathic message to Zhong Jiuxiao. As Zhong Jiuxiao had shut off his hearing organs, he was not as affected by the effects of the impartation of heaven's will as the others. As soon as he heard Pavilion Master Go's orders, a cold glint flashed through his eyes, and he nodded. I'll do it right now. The single flick that had sent him flying had left him utterly humiliated. No matter what, he had to get one back on Zhong Xian. Voila! Flicking his wrist, 2 long swords and 4 sabers appeared before his eyes, each of them commanding a powerful presence. 2 Saint Intermediate Tier and 4 Saint Low Tier Artifact. Even Pavilion Master Go only had a single Saint Intermediate Tier artifact in his possession, and yet, Zhong Jiuxiao was able to whip out 2 of them in a single breath along with 4 other Saint Low Tier artifacts. His fortune was truly astounding. Go! Zhong Jiuxiao waved his hand furiously as he commanded his weapons. Voila! The 6 weapons flew straight toward the lecturing Zhong Xian. Zhong Jiuxiao was not intending to kill Zhong Xian but to interrupt his impartation of heaven's will. A typical Saint Intermediate Tier weapon wielded strength comparable to a primordial spirit realm expert, whereas a typical Saint Low Tier weapon wielded strength comparable to a spiritual perception realm cultivator. Against the simultaneous assault of all 6 weapons, even Vice Pavilion Master Tian would be pressured to deal with them. This was the true strength that Zhong Jiuxiao wielded. The origin of his confidence also lay in these 6 weapons. With them, there was no way any of his peers would be able to match him. Not expecting Zhong Jiuxiao to be so despicable as to assault Zhong Xian at this moment, Wu Shi shouted in a panic, "Zhongsha, be careful." Considering that Zhong Xian was in the midst of crashing the pavilion, Wu Shi was not allowed to make a move to help the other party, or else that would be flouting the rules. Hoo-la! The 6 weapons flew forth in an arc, heading right for Zhong Xian's back. However, the latter continued lecturing the crowd, as if he was oblivious to the movements of the weapons. Channeling the inner breath into the internal organs, like the spirit of a weapon enforcing its body. Other than tempering its body, a weapon can grow stronger through tempering its spirit as well. Even among Saint Intermediate Tier artifacts, there are some that wield strength comparable to a primordial spirit realm expert, and others are on par with leaving aperture realm cultivators. This difference is not a result of the usage of inferior materials in its crafting or lack of tempering, but the weakness of the weapon's spirit. A weak spirit can easily be eradicated by its master, thus placing it in a deeply vulnerable position. Zhong Xian's voice sounded as spiritual energy began gathering in the area, forming beautiful, miniature flowers that slowly drift to the ground. The weapons that were previously heading toward Zhong Xian suddenly halted upon hearing those words. Seeing the weapons that had been charging full momentum a moment ago abruptly coming to a halt, Zhong Jiuxiao panicked. Driving his zhenqi furiously, he loudly bellowed, "Kill him!" Those weapons had already acknowledged him as their master, so there was no reason for them to disobey him. Yet, to abruptly halt in the midst of their assault, floating in midair silently. Were his weapons listening to Zhongxian's lecture as well? Wasn't the impartation of heaven's will supposed to only be effective on cultivators? When did the impartation of heaven's will become effective on weapons as well? Zhong Zhouxiao was completely dazed in this moment. Heart of a teacher, enlightenment devoid of discrimination, Pavilion Master Go muttered in disbelief. His body began trembling uncontrollably. A normal master teacher could cause a cultivator's zhenqi to circulate in accordance to the content of their lecture through their impartation of heaven's will, thus convincing the cultivator to become their student. But to make even weapons listen obediently to his impartation of heaven's will, it could only mean that Zhongxian had already comprehended the heart of a teacher. Those who had comprehended that ability could affect not only cultivators with their impartation of heaven's will, even ordinary humans, animals, or even weapons would be influenced as well. Seeing that none of his weapons were moving, the desperate Zhong Zhouxiao furiously bellowed, "Attack him! I said, attack him!" Who? But before he could finish speaking, the Saint Intermediate Tier sword that had flown forth previously suddenly retreated toward him. Voila! A burst of sword chi suddenly struck Zhong Zhouxiao, plastering him back onto the wall. "Shut up! Can't you just let me listen to this lesson properly? To be prattling on over there so noisily, don't you realize that you are being an annoyance? You think I dare not pummel you?" One of Zhong Zhouxiao's swords harumphed coldly before turning its attention back to Zhongxian. It floated silently in the air, reminiscent of an obedient little student before its teacher. From time to time, it would even tilt itself forward slightly, as if indicating that it had understood the content of the lecture. Chapter 1182, The Legendary Palm Art That Descends from the Heavens. Zhong Zhouxiao burst into tears. For real. As an offspring of the Zhong clan, he had seen plenty of formidable geniuses in his time, and he knew how fearsome they could be. Knowing that there was a natural gap between him and them, even if he was utterly crushed by their hands, he would at least still be able to accept it and swiftly recover from the mental trauma. But, to be pummeled and told to shut up by his own sword. How was he supposed to accept something like that? His heart felt so pained that he could hardly breathe. Was that still his weapon? It was just a mere lecture. Did it really have to betray him over something like that? Compelled by his confusion, Zhong Zhouxiao released the seal on his hearing to hear what kind of amazing knowledge Zhongxian was lecturing about to make his sword willingly betray him. In just a few moments after releasing his hearing, his zhenqi had already begun moving according to the formula that the other party was explaining. Zhong Zhouxiao was astounded by what he was hearing. What a formidable cultivation technique. It's on par with the top-notch techniques of the Zhong clan. Is it really fine for him to impart such a formidable technique so easily? As an offspring of the Zhong clan, he had seen much more than ordinary cultivators, so it was inevitable that he would have a sharp eye for cultivation techniques and the sort. He could tell that there was no fluff in the other party's lecture at all. Every single word was directed toward the crux of cultivation, words of wisdom in the truest sense. Just by assimilating the content of the lecture, he would be able to cultivate much easier and smoother than before. From that alone, it was already superior to most cultivation techniques out there. As Zhong Zhouxiao's eyes started to glaze, he quickly bit his lips to regain his rationality. This won't do. I mustn't continue listening to his lecture, or else I will be indebted to him and become his student. While his state of mind was nothing compared to Zhongxian's, it was still far superior to that of ordinary 7-star master teachers. On top of that, he was a significant distance away from Zhongxian as well. Thus, despite the formidable might of the impartation of heaven's will, he was still able to force himself to retain consciousness. Forcefully suppressing his desire to continue listening to the other party's lecture, he struggled out of the wall with some difficulty while contemplating on how he could ruin the other party's lecture. Zhong Zhouxiao found that he was unable to stand up by himself after struggling for a while, and coincidentally, a lady with a millstone bottom suddenly walked over at this moment. Thus, he strenuously stretched his hand toward to the lady and said, "Come over here and help me for a moment." He knew that the other party was his loyal fan, infatuated with him to a crazed degree. Putting aside helping him up, the other party could remain excited for days just by catching a single look of him. But instead of being helped up, Zhong Jiuxiao found his face welcoming the millstone bottom instead. Su. Crushed by the millstone bottom, he was sent flying into the wall once more, and huge mouthfuls of blood spewed wildly from his mouth. Shut up. If I see you interrupting Zhongshi's lecture again, I'll pummel you whenever I see you on the street. The lady with the millstone bottom harumphed coldly before walking away. Zhong Jiuxiao. First, the betrayal of his weapon, and now, the betrayal of his most loyal fan. Just what kind of magic did Zhongxian cast to be able to capture their hearts so utterly? Traumatized by the happenings, his mental fortitude collapsed in that instant. Unable to suppress himself any longer, his zhenqi began moving according to the formula described by Zhongxian. At the same time, his wounded strength and aura also began recovering swiftly. The more he cultivated, the more intricate he felt the matter was, and the more glazed his eyes became. After an unknown period of time, Zhongxian waved his hand and said, "All right, I'll be stopping the lecture here today. If you have any doubts, feel free to approach me after class to clarify them." "Yes, teacher." The 10,000 or so master teachers of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion bowed down one after another, submitting willingly to the young man before them. Even though the young man had not lectured them for too long, there was no doubt that they had benefited greatly from his lesson. Through his teachings, their cultivation would surely soar in the near future. Even Zhong Jiuxiao had bowed down together with the crowd without any hesitation. "It's over." Seeing how the crowd was reacting, Pavilion Master Go's face collapsed. In an instant, he looked as if he had aged several centuries. He had thought that with the 10,000 master teachers of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, they would at least be able to obstruct the other party. Yet, in just a single lecture, they had ended up becoming his students. If only he had known that Zhongxian was so formidable, he would have never been so foolish as to speak up for Tianqing. "It's your turn." Just as Pavilion Master Go was feeling suffocated within, the young man's voice sounded. Raising his gaze, he saw the other party staring right at Vice Pavilion Master Tian and him. The first phase of pavilion crashing was to defeat all of the master teachers in the Master Teacher Pavilion, and currently, all of the other master teachers had become the other party students, leaving only Wu Shi, Vice Pavilion Master Tian, and Pavilion Master Go. Considering that Wu Shi had a close relationship with the other party, there was no way he would make a move. Thus, he and Vice Pavilion Master Tian were the only ones who remained. Tossing aside all of the miscellaneous thoughts in his mind, Pavilion Master Go exhaled deeply before stepping forward. "Since everything has developed to this point, I'll be your opponent then." As he had already been humiliated, the embarrassment from having to make a move against a junior could not impede him any longer. No matter what, he was a leaving aperture realm expert. While he had yet to undergo the leaving aperture ordeal, his strength still far exceeded that of Vice Pavilion Master Tian and Wu Shi. As he made his way over toward Zhongxian, Pavilion Master Go noticed that Vice Pavilion Master Tian seemed to be intending to join the battle as well, so he quickly shook his hand and harumphed. "Tianqing, you wait by the side and don't make a move. Even if our Master Teacher Pavilion is crashed today, we mustn't abandon our dignity." It was already embarrassing for a 7-star Master Teacher like him to make a move against a 6-star Master Teacher. If they had to go to the extent of ganging up on the latter on top of that, they would not be able to face anyone anymore. "Yes." A cold glint flashed across Tianqing's eyes as he stepped backward and lowered his head silently. When Pavilion Master Go was standing only 10 meters away from Zhongxian, Wu Shi secretly sent a telepathic message over to the latter. "Principal Zhong, even though Pavilion Master Go hasn't undergone the leaving aperture ordeal yet, he still wields power far exceeding mine. You must be careful when facing him." He had taken into account everything that had happened over the past few days, and as unwilling he was to see Zhongxian crash the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, he knew that the latter was justified in doing so. Furthermore, considering the latter's identity, nothing could be allowed to happen to him. Zhongxian nodded. The leaving aperture realm could be further divided into quasi-leaving aperture realm and true leaving aperture realm. Basically, quasi-leaving aperture referred to those who had already gained the ability to draw their primordial spirit out of their bodies but had yet to undergo the lightning ordeal. Without undergoing the lightning ordeal, No matter how powerful one's primordial spirit was, its strength would still be limited. It was like how Zhongxian could have never wielded such astounding power at just Saint Tu Dan if he had not undergone the Saint Ascension ordeal back then. Hall Master Xing and Pavilion Master Go were both at quasi-leaving aperture realm. As powerful as they were, there was still a gap between them and true leaving aperture realm primary stage experts. Nevertheless, their strength was still plenty fearsome. They were already capable of adept controlling their environment and wielding it to their advantage, making it difficult for any opponent whose cultivation was beneath them to match them. Make your move. Facing the strongest opponent that he had encountered other than Luo Chengxian, a hint of graveness surfaced in Zhongxian's eyes. Hula. Without wasting his breath on words, Pavilion Master Go raised his hand and thrust it forward forcefully. His palm strike did not seem to be particularly powerful, but through the mystical capabilities of his primordial spirit, the space surrounding his palm strike became extremely viscous, making it difficult to dodge his attack. Leaving aperture realm cultivators are capable of controlling space to some degree, allowing them to hinder the movements of their enemies. If I had not learned ancient sage Qiu Wu's heavenly art of dimension unravel, I would have been bound by that before I could do anything, Zhongxian remarked internally as he felt the changes in his surroundings. As expected of the strongest fighting power within the Qingyuan Empire, even without undergoing the lightning ordeal, their strength was still not something that a Saint Tu Dan cultivator like Zhongxian could withstand. Retreat. Without any hesitation, Zhongxian stepped forcefully against the ground and leaped backward. As long as Pavilion Master Go had not reached true leaving aperture realm, the space that he could control would be severely limited. If Zhongxian could get out of the other party's range, the other party's technique would not be able to faze him. Do you think that you will be able to escape? Sneering coldly, Pavilion Master Go raised his hand and closed it forcefully. In the following moment, it felt as if the space within the room had abruptly caved in, and the momentum of Zhongxian's retreat was immediately stalled. Battle technique, Dominion of the Roaring Tiger. Even though it was only an ordinary Saint low-tier battle technique, the strength that it displayed was comparable to a Saint intermediate-tier battle technique in Pavilion Master Go's hands. TZZZZZZZ. A thin sheet of zhunqi revolved relentlessly in the surroundings, causing the air to become even more viscous than before. Dragged back by that thin sheet of zhunqi, Zhongxian's speed plummeted once more. With his strength, he should have been able to cover tens of meters within a single breath. Yet, under the effects of Pavilion Master Go's multiple means, he could not even retreat half a meter within the same period of time. As expected of the head of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, Zhongxian remarked as he decisively halted his retreat. The following instant, his body blurred slightly before abruptly vanishing from the spot. What? Seeing the other party vanish right before him, Pavilion Master Go narrowed his eyes in astonishment. Before he could react, a figure suddenly materialized in front of him, and a palm flew forcefully toward his chest. Zhongxian had decisively abandoned his retreat, choosing to use the momentum of the Dominion of the Roaring Tiger to charge toward him instead. However, this was nothing to worry about. After all, the gap between them was simply so huge that it could not be bridged by tactics alone. Not a bad maneuver at all. If it had been anyone else, it just might have worked. However, it's a pity that you are going up against a leaving aperture realm cultivator. Sneering coldly, a brilliant ray of light burst from Pavilion Master Go's glabella before a primordial spirit drifted out into the air. The next moment, Zhongxian felt as if his entire body had been bound. Even though his palm was just half a meter away from the other party, it was as if there was a world standing in between that half a meter. No matter how he pushed forward, his palm just would not advance any further. Is this the strength of a leaving aperture realm expert? Zhongxian clenched his fists tightly together. Even though he had learned the heavenly art of dimension unravel, granting him some control over space, it was still insufficient for him to go head-to-head against an opponent as powerful as Pavilion Master Go. It looks like this is my limit. Zhongxian sighed deeply. Upon gaining a rough gauge of how powerful he was at the moment, he decided to get serious. In an instant, all the acupoints throughout his body burst open, and an overwhelming surge of zhunqi burst forth. The zhunqi swiftly morphed into thousands of palms superimposed upon one another before falling upon Pavilion Master Go. Thousand hands roulai palm? How can this technique be so powerful? It seems like he has made some alterations to it, or else it couldn't possibly wield such power. Recognizing the move that Zhongxian was executing, the master teachers in the area were stunned. The thousand hands roulai palm was a saint intermediate tier battle technique. While it allowed one to strike hundreds of palms consecutively, each individual palm strike was not that powerful due to the dispersion of energy. Against a stronger opponent, it would only be effective as a distraction. However, this limitation did not seem to apply to Zhongxian at all. Every single palm within his thousands of palms was filled with devastating might that threatened to smash apart everything within its way. Even a primordial spirit realm pinnacle expert would have been smashed into minced meat before it. Just how much zhunqi must he have to execute so many palms simultaneously? A master teacher within the crowd exclaimed in shock. Those words left the master teachers widening their eyes in shock as they swiftly made calculations in their minds. The unbelievable conclusion that they arrived at caused them to gulp a mouthful of saliva down their hoarse throats. Indeed. To be able to execute thousands of palms with each palm strike wielding such devastating might, even if they were to learn this battle technique as well, there was no way that they would have enough zhunqi to successfully execute it. Even if they sapped every last droplet of zhunqi from their bodies, they would not even be able to execute a quarter of the battle technique. Sealer. Under the relentless waves of devastating palm strikes, the seals that Pavilion Master Go had cast over the surrounding space were swiftly torn into shreds. Following which, with a powerful leap, Zhongxian rose high into the air before abruptly turning 180 degrees and diving downward quickly accelerating. At the same time, he pulled his palm backward and thrust it forward powerfully. Boom! An immense palm print formed in front of Zhongxian's hand. This. Could it be? Upon seeing this sight, Zhong Zhouxiao's face paled in shock as he turned to a nearby master teacher and asked anxiously, "Do you remember the legendary palm art that descends from the heavens?" "I don't," replied the master teacher curtly. Zhong Zhouxiao. Chapter 1183. No, you haven't heard of ancient sage Qiu Wu's heavenly demon Great Sorrow Palm? Back then, unable to pay his final respects to his deceased mother due to compelling circumstances, ancient sage Qiu Wu created this technique out of deep sorrow. Due to the concept behind the technique, the heavenly demon Great Sorrow Palm is one of the few physical battle techniques that is able to phase a cultivator's soul. Legend has it that one of its moves consists of a palm art descending from the heavens, Zhong Zhouxiao quickly explained as he stared at the sight before him with the utmost shock. As an offspring of the Zhong clan, while the lacking purity of his bloodline made him unqualified to access the best cultivation resources within the clan, the experiences and relics that he had come into contact with in the Zhong clan still granted him knowledge and an eye of discernment far superior to the master teachers of the Qingyuan conferred empire. As one of the closest followers of Kong Shi, ancient sage Qiu Wu was indubitably a legendary figure of the master teacher pavilion. While the heavenly demon Great Sorrow Palm was not the strongest battle technique that he had created, the unique properties of the technique still made it rather well known. Hoo. While Zhong Zhouxiao was explaining the palm art to the other master teacher, more and more power was gathering in front of Zhongxian's palm, stirring up a mini tornado in the surroundings. Everyone could not help but retreat before the powerful air currents. A tree desires the calm, but the wind batters relentlessly. A child seeks to repay, but his parents wait not. Seemingly recognizing the move as well, Pavilion Master Go's body trembled in astonishment. The person whom he respected the most happened to be ancient sage Qiu Wu, so naturally, he knew about the heavenly demon Great Sorrow Palm as well. His mind was almost blown when he saw Zhongxian executing the move. He had searched for ancient sage Qiu Wu's heritage for so many years, but to no avail. Who would have thought that the young man before him would be able to execute the battle techniques of his idol so easily, so smoothly, and so powerfully? Voila! In his moment of astonishment, the palm strike finally fell upon him. Zhongxian possessed the eye of insight, and he had already achieved the level of infinitesimal maneuver as well. As such, he was able to grasp the flow of battle with perfect precision. It took a mere glance for him to notice the huge fluctuations in Pavilion Master Go's emotions, and he instinctively knew that this was the ideal opportunity for him to strike. Under the immense force of the palm strike, Pavilion Master Go's primordial spirit was forcefully struck back into his body before he retreated 8 steps back. His face reddened from the impact, and a mouthful of blood burst from his lips. That single palm strike had dealt considerable internal injuries to him. The leaving Aperture Realm Pavilion Master Go was actually injured by Zhongshe, but there is a 3-realm difference between the two of them. To be able to bridge this gap and match Pavilion Master Go squarely, Zhongshe is too formidable. The other master teachers did not recognize the heavenly demon Great Sorrow Palm, but upon seeing Pavilion Master Go getting injured from Zhongshen's assault, their bodies could not help but stiffen in disbelief. To them, Pavilion Master Go was not only the most powerful expert of the Master Teacher Pavilion but a symbol of its invincibility as well. He was the sturdy pillar whom they could fall back on in times of crisis. Yet, in less than 3 blows, Zhongshen had already managed to push him back and deal considerable internal injuries to him. This was an immense shock to all of them. It's fortunate that we listened earnestly to his lecture instead of challenging him, or else, we might have been lying on the floor at this very moment. Indeed. Thank God for Zhongshe's magnanimity. Wiping the cold sweat off their foreheads, the master teachers patted their wildly beating chest in relief. Earlier, when they had submitted to Zhongshen's impartation of heaven's will without putting up a fight, they had felt that they had let the master teacher Pavilion down. However, the sight before them had dispelled the deep guilt within them. Against such strength, even if they had really challenged Zhongshen, there was no doubt that they would have been defeated as well. Their involvement would not have made the slightest difference to the ultimate outcome. Your move. Frantically steadying his body, Pavilion Master Go swiftly suppressed his internal injuries before turning to Zhongshen with an anxious look. He opened his mouth, wanting to ask the young man before him about the technique that he had just executed, but before he could finish his words, the young man had already charged up to him to continue his assault. This time, the young man's palm strike was much more powerful than before. While it was not augmented by the momentum of his descent, the might that it wielded did not pale in comparison at all. Humph, I'll take a look for myself to see if that is the real heavenly demon Great Sorrow Palm or not. Knowing that it would be fatal if he allowed himself to be distracted in battle, Pavilion Master Go swiftly put aside all of his miscellaneous thoughts and turned his attention back to the battle. Previously, he had been relying on the abilities unique to leaving Aperture Realm cultivators to deal with Zhongshen, but this time, he wanted to rely on his own Zhenqi and body and fight a proper battle with the other party. Placing his palms together before his chest, ripples of shockwaves began spreading out one after another from the meeting of his hands, inducing a deafening sonic boom. Saint Intermediate Tier Battle Technique, Myriad Waves Layered Cloud. Legend had it that a master teacher had created this battle technique when inspiration struck him while studying the flow of water within a river. Ripples of shockwaves would burst forth relentlessly like the river that flowed tirelessly, overwhelming the surroundings through its multiple layers just like the clouds concealed the sky. Pavilion Master Go had devoted countless years of his life to refining this technique of his, and he had long achieved a high level of mastery in it. The myriad waves layered clouds easily halted the advancement of Zhongshen's heavenly demon Great Sorrow Palm, keeping it firmly at bay. However, Zhongshen did not back down just because of that. Instead, while continuing to exert force on his right hand, he raised his left hand and gathered the power of the stars on his fingertip before shooting a blinding ray of light forward. The grand constellation finger. A palm art in one hand, a finger art in the other. The crowd was stunned by what they were seeing. Even Zhong Jiuxiao was shocked speechless by the sight, not daring to believe his eyes. A palm art and a finger art were two entirely different battle techniques, and the Zhenqi circulation pathways required for executing the techniques were completely different from one another as well. It was possible to execute the palm art first before executing the finger art, or vice versa, but, to execute them simultaneously on a hand each, that was a nigh impossible feat. Putting aside them, not even Pavilion Master Go would have been able to accomplish such a feat. Woo! The grand constellation finger swiftly tore a small hole in Pavilion Master Go's myriad waves layered clouds, causing the might of the latter's battle technique to disperse swiftly like flowing water, thus undoing the defense that the other party had built up. Catcher. The heavenly demon Great Sorrow Palm swiftly tore through Pavilion Master Go's weakened defense with overwhelming might, forcing the latter to retreat in a fluster. Incredible. Not expecting that he would still be outdone despite having exerted his full strength, Pavilion Master Go assessed the young man before him grimly. Swapping his palm with a fist, he charged forward once more. Boom, boom, boom. Both sides moved with incredible agility. Within less than a minute, they had already exchanged more than 100 blows. Watching the battle, one of the master teachers could not help but mutter to himself in absolute shock. Pavilion Master Go was known as an unparalleled genius in his earlier days, and he has mastered countless powerful battle techniques. In that series of exchanges previously, he must have used at least 10 different battle techniques. Considering his background, it's understandable how he is able to pull that off, but, if my eyes are not playing tricks on me, Zhongshe seems to have used more than 80 battle techniques in the same period of time. Pavilion Master Go was already nearing 900, so it was not surprising for him to have learned and mastered many battle techniques. But Zhongshe was only 20 years old. To execute so many formidable battle techniques with ease, it was apparent that he had a deep understanding of every single one of them. How could that be possible? I have been counting, and he has used a total of 87 battle techniques so far, another master teacher added. Those words swiftly caught the attention of others, and they widened their eyes in disbelief. As combat masters, they knew how difficult it was to master every single battle technique. Yet, every single battle technique that the young man had executed was at a mastery of major accomplishment at the very minimum. Inconceivable. It seems like it's about time for the title of the #1 genius of Qingyuan City to change hand. The crowd could not help but agree with that statement. In the past, they had viewed Zhong Jiuxiao as a hurdle that they would never be able to overcome, but after seeing the young man before them, they realized that a true prodigy was actually in existence who was far beyond the comprehension of mortals like them. Contrary to everyone's shock, Wu Shi frowned in incomprehension at the sight before him instead. Something is wrong. Another master teacher stepped forward to ask, Wu Shi, what's wrong? Wu Shi contemplated for a moment, trying to put his finger on the feeling of incongruence that he felt. Principal Zhong specializes in identifying the flaws of others and capitalizing on them to subdue his opponents, but he has not done so in this battle. Instead, he began displaying an array of battle techniques. It almost as if he's intentionally prolonging the battle to temper himself. While the other master teachers might not have been familiar with Zhongshe's abilities, he could not have been any clearer about them, especially after what they had gone through together in the Qiuwu Palace. The fellow had a remarkable eye that allowed him to accurately discern the flaws within the battle techniques or cultivation techniques of any cultivator, and he had always relied on this ability to catch his opponent off guard and subdue them in a single move. But despite utilizing so many powerful battle techniques, that fellow did not center his attacks on Pavilion Master Go's flaws. From this, it could be deduced that he was not intending to defeat the latter immediately. If so, there could only be one possibility. He was trying to temper his strength through battle. Tempering himself? The master teacher could not believe what he was hearing. If it was on any other occasion that someone had told him that a spiritual perception realm cultivator was battling a leaving aperture realm expert but was thinking of ways to temper himself through the battle instead of achieving victory, he would have surely thought that the other party was fool or a lunatic. However, with what was happening right before his eyes, no matter how inconceivable the matter was, he knew that it was the undeniable truth. To actually be thinking of tempering himself while fighting against an expert 3 cultivation realms stronger than he was, just how confident was the other party in his fighting prowess? Boom, boom, boom. After trading 3 more blows, Pavilion Master Go was suddenly forced back, giving Zhongshe a moment to catch his breath. Just as Wu Shi had guessed, he was intending to use Pavilion Master Go to temper his mastery of the battle techniques. It was not easy for him to find a worthy opponent who could take him at his full might. Furthermore, he had just learned many new battle techniques from the Combat Master Hall, so he wanted to test them out and heighten his mastery in them as well. As expected of a leaving aperture realm expert, I'm indeed no match for him at the moment. Zhongxian shook his head and sighed. Even though his fighting prowess had risen after grasping the heavenly art of dimension unravel, it would still be too difficult for him to match a leaving aperture realm expert until he achieved a breakthrough to the embryonic soul realm. Otherwise, just by the overwhelming gap in their fundamental capabilities and strength, it was nigh impossible for him to emerge victorious. Nevertheless, while it would be difficult for him to achieve victory in a proper duel, there were actually many other ways he could subdue the other party. Raising his palm and crushing it downward to halt the other party's advancement, Zhongxian snapped his fingers. Su 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 su. More than 100 flags suddenly materialized from Zhongxian's storage ring, and they swiftly took their positions around Pavilion Master Go. As soon as that was done, Zhongxian stomped on the ground lightly, and the formation instantaneously came to life. He had achieved a proficiency comparable to 7-star formation masters in the field of formations back at the Qiuwu Palace. Although it would be difficult to him to fight against Pavilion Master Go with just his own strength, with the help of a formation, his chances of victory would be enhanced significantly. Hula. A mist swiftly shrouded the entire area, concealing Pavilion Master Go within as well. Zhongxian had set up 2 7-star intermediate stage formations, and while they were not too powerful, it would still take Pavilion Master Go more than 10 breaths to undo them. That period of time was more than enough for Zhongxian to subdue Pavilion Master Go. As the formation whirred into operation, the crowd found their vision completely blocked by the mist. Catcher. After 15 minutes, the formation finally dissipated, and with a wave of his hand, Zhongxian returned all of the formation flags to his storage ring. Seeing that the battle had ended so quickly, the crowd quickly turned their gazes toward Pavilion Master Go, only to freeze the next moment. The dashing Pavilion Master Go from a moment ago had his head planted in the ground. His entire body was covered with blood and wounds, such that there was not a single spot of unblemished skin on his body. It was apparent that he had come under a frenzied torrent of attacks within the short period of time, and it was doubtful whether even his closest kin would be able to recognize him given the current state he was in. Huala. Pavilion Master Go plucked his head out from the earth. He did not seem to feel disappointed or humiliated by his loss. On the contrary, his eyes were filled with excitement and anticipation as he asked, "Zhongsha, may I ask if the technique you displayed earlier is ancient sage Qiuwu's heavenly demon Great Sorrow Palm?" "That's right." Zhongxian nodded, admitting to the matter. "May I know if it's possible for you?" Pavilion Master Go hesitated. Gritting his teeth in determination, he continued. "To impart the battle technique to me? Why? You are interested in learning the technique? That's right. Then I won't teach you." Chapter 1184. Pavilion Master Go admits defeat. While a teacher should enlighten others without discrimination, Pavilion Master Go had truly crossed Zhongxian's bottom line. For his own selfishness, he had chosen to disregard the truth and selfishly sided with Vice Pavilion Master Tian. The stronger a person like that was, the greater a threat to humanity they were. Thus, how could he possibly impart ancient sage Qiuwu's heavenly demon Great Sorrow art to the other party? Zhongxian was a kind and generous person, but that did not mean that he was undiscerning and naive. He had a clear gauge of who he should accept as his student and who he should never accept as his student. "Pardon me, I was getting ahead of myself." Pavilion Master Go's face sank in disappointment. It was just a moment ago that he had forced the other party into crashing their master-teacher pavilion, so why would the other party be willing to impart his battle technique to him now? He should be glad that the other party had not killed him on the spot. "I have lost." Pavilion Master Go closed his eyes momentarily and shook his head. A moment later, he opened his eyes and announced, "Zhongsha has successfully cleared the first phase of the pavilion crashing." The first phase was to defeat all of the master teachers of the Master Teacher Pavilion, and given that Zhongxian had managed to get all 10,000 master teachers to submit to him and defeat the strongest Pavilion Master Go, he had already cleared it. "Hold it for a moment. I haven't fought with Vice Pavilion Master Tian yet, and I don't think it's right that we skip straight past him," Zhongxian interjected. "Even I am not a match for you, let alone Tian Qing. Thus, there's no longer any meaning in you fighting him," Pavilion Master Go said. However, Zhongxian did not seem to be convinced by that explanation. He was just about to argue when Tian Qing clasped his fist and said, "I am not an opponent for you either. I admit my defeat." A hint of disappointment surfaced in Zhongxian's eyes. To be honest, he was still seething with rage with Vice Pavilion Master Tian. If only the other party had agreed to have a duel with him, he would surely have pummeled the other party deep into the ground, never to see the light of the day again. But since Vice Pavilion Master Tian had admitted his defeat, there was no excuse he could use anymore. After all, the act of pavilion crashing was bound by rules, and the entire process was supervised by the headquarters. It would not be good for him to intentionally kill another master teacher here. The master teacher tower is over there. Follow me. The master teacher tower housed the wills of the strongest master teacher of each generation. Some of them had reached the level of 8-star low tier, and there were those who had achieved accomplishments even higher than that. Naturally, it would not be an easy feat to overcome them. As such, the first phase of pavilion crashing was actually considered a mere warm-up. The true test lay ahead. This was the challenge that had halted the footsteps of countless geniuses in history. Following behind Pavilion Master Go, it did not take long for Zhongxian to see a 7-story tower looming over him. Knowing that a great trial lay ahead, Zhongxian took a deep breath and gathered his concentration before making his way in. As soon as Zhongxian's silhouette disappeared amid the darkness of the tower, a master teacher could not help but ask apprehensively, "Will Zhongshe succeed?" "It'll be very difficult. While our Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion isn't ranked at the forefront of the 8 conferred empires, it has still produced 4 8-star master teachers in history. Of them, He even managed to reach 8-star high tier in his lifetime. With the extensive knowledge he possesses and the incredible power he wields, the will he has left behind in the Master Teacher Tower won't be that easy to overcome, another Master Teacher within the crowd replied. The first Master Teacher nodded in agreement. Indeed. 8-star Master Teachers are existences that are considered near the peak of the Master Teacher continent. Be it their knowledge, state of mind, or comprehension of cultivation, it would be difficult for ordinary Master Teachers to match them. Geez, I hope that Zhongshe will be able to clear the examination. If he succeeds, as his students, we will be able to share his glory as well. I am also fervently praying for his success. It has been a long time since anyone has crashed a pavilion. If he succeeds, think about the fame that it will bring us. In the future, I'll be able to brag to my friends that my teacher is a successful pavilion crasher. The two master teachers spoke with looks of anticipation on their faces. Pu. Hearing the words of the duo, the severely wounded pavilion master Go suddenly felt his injuries acting up once more, and fresh blood spurted wildly from his mouth. It took quite a while before he managed to calm himself down once more. Master teachers of other master teacher pavilions would lay down their lives to guard the honor and pride of their pavilion, so why were his master teachers wishing for Zhongshen's victory instead? Do you even realize that this is your master teacher pavilion too? Once he succeeds in crashing the pavilion, you will be humiliated, too. Glory your head. Noticing the look on pavilion master Go's face, Wuxia could immediately tell what the other party was thinking about, and he shook his head. Those who conduct themselves morally will find help coming their way, while those who lack principles will find themselves isolated from the others. Pavilion Master Go, regardless of whether Principal Zhong is able to clear the Master Teacher Tower or not, you have already lost the hearts of your men. Even if the headquarters do not pursue this matter, it is likely that no Master Teacher within the Master Teacher Pavilion will willingly follow your orders anymore. While Vice Pavilion Master Tian's act of framing Zhongxian had been carried out discreetly, considering how the matter had blown up to such a degree, there was no way the truth could be hidden any further. A person who stood bravely against an entire Master Teacher Pavilion in order to redress his grievances, as compared to a pavilion master who chose to overlook the evil of others just to save his own skin and retire peacefully, it was apparent with a single look whom the crowd would choose to side with. Due to this matter, Pavilion Master Go would be despised by all master teachers in the world, never to make a comeback. Realizing the same, Pavilion Master Go's face turned ashen in despair. In truth, he had also realized that his days of glory were over from the moment the other party declared that he would crash the Master Teacher Pavilion. But he had not expected that those master teachers whom he had fought alongside with previously would abandon him so utterly either. His eyes colored with desolation, Pavilion Master Go gazed into the sky with a complicated look. Have I really done wrong? The initial hopes and dreams in bettering the world when he first became the regional pavilion master had eroded over the long 500 years. Unknowingly, his priority had shifted into desperately protecting the authority and prestige that he held instead. Perhaps karma had truly come around to bite him. With a suffocating sensation within his chest, he turned to Wu Shi and asked, "What is the background of Zhongshi?" "He's the most diligent and talented individual I have ever seen in the world," Wu Shi replied with a brilliant gleam in his eyes. A person who insisted on reading and bettering himself no matter what kind of circumstances he was in. Just Zhong Xian's attitude toward studying was one that he should really strive to learn from. Perhaps, it was due to how studious Zhong Xian was that he was able to achieve what he had at such a young age, possessing strength far beyond his. Zhong Xian slowly advanced after entering the huge doors of the Master Teacher Tower. Having challenged the Master Teacher Tower once back at Shenyuan Kingdom, he knew the rules concerning it. The wills of the outstanding predecessors of the Master Teacher Pavilion were deposited here, and every single one of them wielded superior strength. It was nigh impossible to defeat them in a normal duel, and due to that, the test would tend to concern the fundamental abilities of master teachers instead, such as lecturing, discerning flaws, offering pointers on battle techniques, and so on. As such, what was tested in this second phase was not one's strength but how accomplished a master teacher one was. Who? After proceeding for some time, an illusory figure suddenly appeared before Zhong Xian. He was the guardian of the very first test, an 8-star low-tier master teacher who had risen from the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion 13,000 years ago, Zhao Zhen. Seeing that the person who was crashing the pavilion was only a 20-year-old, Master Teacher Zhao Zhen frowned. To crash a Master Teacher Pavilion at such a young age, what kind of grievances have you suffered? The incumbent Pavilion Master has sided with Evilders to sully my reputation just to preserve a clean record and protect his own position. Zhong Xian clasped his fist and began explaining the matter. There's actually such a matter. The Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion really is getting worse generation after generation. It is high time to do some internal reorganization. Zhao Zhen harumphed furiously before turning his sights back to Zhong Xian once more. I know that you have suffered greatly from this matter, but as one of the guardians of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, I cannot let you pass me so easily. Otherwise, if everyone attempted to crash the Master Teacher Pavilion whenever something happened, the authority of the Master Teacher Pavilion will be undermined. I hope that you can understand that. I understand. Zhong Xian nodded. Seeing how earnest the young man was, Zhao Zhen nodded in approval. My test will be on discerning flaws in my battle technique. I will execute a battle technique, and as long as you can find a single flaw in it, you will have cleared my test. Hearing those words, Zhong Xian's face brightened up. All right. On the other hand, seeing that the young man had loosened up instead after hearing the content of his test, as if it was already a done deal, Zhao Zhen frowned. Don't think that it will be easy to find a flaw in my battle technique. I won't be going easy on you just because of your plight. I will be using my most prided battle technique, one that I have refined again and again in my lifetime in order to perfect it. While I cannot say that it's flawless, most 7-star pinnacle master teachers would need numerous months before they could find a single flaw. I understand. Pardon me, but I am in a hurry, so can we get it over and done with quickly? Zhong Xian asked. You. Displeased, Master Teacher Zhao Zhen flung his sleeves furiously. As an 8-star low-tier master teacher, a test from him could not possibly be as easy as it sounded. Yet, that young man was taking him lightly, even saying that he wanted to get it over and done with as if everything was already in his grasp. Was he really that confident in clearing his test, or was he just another conceited fool? The battle technique that I will be using is known as the Autumn Breeze Intertwining Silk Hands. It's a technique that I came up with while observing the falling leaves being raked up by the autumn wind, only to be entangled in a spider's web. I'll first execute it once for you. Master teacher Zhao Zhen raised his hands and drew out fine Jinchi threads from the tips of his fingers. With elegant movements, he skillfully weaved it into a spider's web that entrapped everything within it. If someone was within the spider's web's area, they would surely find themselves getting helplessly entangled if they tried to escape from the area. I have never executed this battle technique before anyone, so you need not try to find any shortcuts around this test. Also, do not even think that you will be able to pull the wool over my eyes, it won't work. My technique consists of 10 moves, and each of them is stronger than the last. The one that I have just executed is only the first move, entwining threads of golden silk. After I am done executing all 10 moves, I will give you 4 hours to contemplate over the matter. If you are able to find a single flaw in my technique, you pass. Otherwise, I will have to regretfully inform you that your pavilion crashing has come to an end, Master Teacher Zhao Zhen said as he executed the technique. Typically speaking, he would grant those crashing the pavilion 2 days to analyze the intricacies in his battle techniques. However, the young man before him had spoken arrogantly, so he had chosen to narrow the time frame to 4 hours instead so as to hammer down the other party's arrogance. When the other party finally came to realize his own arrogance upon failing to come up with anything after 4 hours, he would loosen the time restriction. Zhong Xian shook his head and said, "There's no need to execute all 10 moves or wait 4 hours, I can list your flaws now." It was only in the spur of the moment from Pavilion Master Go's humiliation that he had chosen to engage in pavilion crashing. His priority was still to be promoted to 7-star Master Teacher and find ways to earn more concentrated high-tier spirit stones to raise his cultivation. He did not have any time to waste here. "You will list my flaws now?" Zhao Zhen was taken aback. He had only used a single move, but the young man was ready to list his flaws. What utter nonsense. Your autumn breeze intertwining silk hands does not look bad on the surface, wielding strength that would easily put it in the forefront of Saint intermediate tier battle techniques. Upon mastering the technique, the Junchi threads can be skillfully utilized in many ways to restrict an opponent's movements, making it an extremely difficult technique to deal with. However, it's unfortunate that it is riddled with quite a number of flaws. I did a rough count earlier, and it seems like there is a total of 37 flaws, Zhong Xian said. 37 flaws? Zhao Zhen's face darkened in rage. I have only used the first move of my battle technique, and it's already questionable in itself whether you are able to find a single flaw from it or not. Yet, you are telling me that you have already found 37? In an instant, the last traces of goodwill that Zhao Zhen felt toward the young man before him vanished. Indeed. Oblivious to Zhao Zhen's thoughts regarding him, Zhong Xian thought that the other party was just skeptical about there being so many flaws in his technique, so he swiftly explained, the creation of a battle technique must involve trial through practical battles as well to test its effectiveness and might. Considering that you have never imparted the battle technique to anyone else or tested it out in battle, I must say that it's already impressive that there are only 37 flaws in your battle technique. You. Hearing those words, Zhao Zhen nearly exploded on the spot. With a livid face, he uttered coldly, "Since that's the case, why don't you tell me where the 37 flaws are? If you can't, don't blame me for getting nasty with you." Chapter 1185, Pavilion Crashing, Success. Are you feeling indignant because I said that there are 37 flaws in your battle technique? Fine, I'll list them for you. Seeing how the other party was refusing to learn humbly despite erring so much, Zhong Xian frowned in displeasure. In the tone of an elder educating his juniors, he said, "First and foremost, I'll start with the greatest flaw of your autumn breeze intertwining silk hands. You mentioned that you created it while observing the leaves being raked up by the autumn breeze, but I cannot see the desolation of autumn from your battle technique at all. All I can see is the intertwining nature of the Junchi threads. There is completely no conception in it at all. Intent without strength is a pipe dream, and strength without intent is simply wasted energy. If it was just a spirit tier battle technique, it would not pose much of a problem at all. However, for a Saint Realm expert to utilize a battle technique devoid of conception, there's no doubt that it'll place him at a severe disadvantage against his peers. This. Zhao Zhen was stunned. It was not impossible to create a Saint tier battle technique devoid of conception, But conception could augment the might of a battle technique significantly and make it easier to grasp the technique. In a sense, it could indeed be considered a flaw. Back then, when he created the technique, he had just successfully cleared his 8-star master teacher examination. With his heart filled with delight from his success, he was not in the correct state of mind to comprehend the desolation of autumn. As a result, while he did succeed in creating a powerful Saint intermediate tier battle technique, he failed to infuse the correct conception into it. As for the second flaw, as useful as your entwining threads of golden silk is in limiting the movements of an opponent, it's only effective against ordinary cultivators. True experts will be able to swiftly notice the openings in the technique. Look, if I just concentrate my zhenqi at this point. As he spoke, Zhongxian raised his hand and drew fine zhenqi threads from his fingers. In a moment, he had already weaved the web that Zhao Zhen had created earlier. You! Zhao Zhen widened his eyes in shock. He had never executed this technique in public before, so there was no way the young man could have learned it from anywhere else. Since that was the case, didn't it mean that the young man had learned the technique from him just by observing it once? But how could that be? Not even the most formidable of prodigies that he knew of could grasp a battle technique that swiftly. A moment later, Zhao Zhen suddenly noticed a slight discrepancy in Zhongxian's actions, and he exclaimed in delight, "Wait a moment, your entwining threads of golden silk is slightly different from mine." He was the man who had single-handedly created the autumn breeze intertwining silk hands. As similar as the young man's entwining threads of golden silk was to his, the subtle differences in their movements were still unable to escape his eyes. Oh, the original version is too trashy, so I quickly altered it a little. Zhongxian waved his hand as he replied leisurely, "Don't interrupt me, let me finish my words first." Too trashy? Quickly altered it a little? Zhao Zhen's body trembled in shock upon hearing those words. He turned his sight toward the altered version that the young man was executing to examine it closely, and it seemed like the other party's version was much stronger than his. Hula! While he was still caught up in the shock from seeing the battle technique that he had perfected with much difficulty being improved by another so easily, he saw the young man raising his other palm and striking a certain point within the web. Voila! In an instant, as if having its crux destroyed, the zhenqi web swiftly shriveled, and the surge of zhenqi abruptly reversed as if an alarmed beast. The crux of your entwining threads of golden silk lies in the constriction of the zhenqi threads upon contact with the opponent so as to trap the latter. I'm not saying that it doesn't work, but its flaw is apparent as well. Once this Mingmen is noticed by the opponent, the latter just has to tap on it lightly in order to cause the flow of zhenqi to reverse, resulting in a backlash. Those words left Zhao Zhen's eyes narrowing in shock. He was indeed aware of this flaw in his autumn breeze intertwining silk hands, but one had to be at least an 8-star high-tier master teacher before they were able to notice it, and against such experts, victory was already impossible in the first place. Thus, he had not really paid much attention to it. Moving on, for your second move, threading the heavens, a silver thread infused with one's will is skillfully maneuvered to control the environment, allowing one to corner the opponent. However, the problem is that the silver thread can be easily severed. Once the opponent notices the presence of the silver thread and severs it, it will inflict significant damage to one's soul. Zhongxian continued. Hold it for a moment. Zhao Zhen's eyes widened upon hearing those words. I haven't executed my second technique yet, right? So, how could you know its name and its flaws? I told you not to interrupt me. Given how simple your battle technique is, anyone would easily have deduced the rest as long as they are no fool. Zhongxian waved his hand impatiently. As for your third move, Cry of the Autumn Cicada, I understand that you wanted to incorporate a sonic attack into the autumn breeze intertwining silk hands in order to grant it more variability and transformations, but this happens to be the most flawed move in your battle technique as well. Out of the 37 flaws, it takes up a whole 8 of them, and they are namely. Zhongxian proceeded to explain every single flaw in elaborate detail, clearly pointing out the fundamental principle behind each move and how it could be easily deciphered. Just by hearing this much, Zhao Zhen could tell that there were no longer any secrets in his battle technique. At this point, it was as if the other party was the creator of the autumn breeze intertwining silk hands and not him. His lips twitched as he felt his body growing more and more illusory, threatening to dissipate at any moment. Had it not been for his superior mental fortitude as an 8-star master teacher, he might have gone mad there and then. To be able to deduce the other 9 moves just by seeing the first one, even accurately naming them, why did it feel as if he was dreaming? At this point, the young man's lecturing voice suddenly sounded once more, jolting him out of his dazed state. "All right, these are the flaws that I have noticed so far. Have you understood them? Do you know where you have erred now?" "Yes, I know my errors now. I won't do it in the future," Zhao Zhan replied instinctively, but halfway through his words, he suddenly paused before redness spread across his face. The other party had placed himself in the role of a teacher, and somehow, he had been dragged along with the flow and subconsciously placed himself in the role of a student. He was an old ancestor from 13,000 years ago, an elder countless generations more senior than the young man before him. For this to happen. Cough cough. Unable to take it any longer, Zhao Zhan quickly waved his hand and ushered Zhong Xian to move on. All right. You have already cleared the test, so you should proceed to the next floor." "Cleared the test? Is that the problem now? It seems like you still have not realized what the problem is. As a master teacher who has ventured beyond the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, do you know how many people look up to you as their role model? And yet, is this the attitude you have toward learning?" Zhong Xian berated furiously. "You are really the worst student I have seen in my years of teaching. You should learn some humility." Zhao Zhan was crazed. "I am the invigilator over here. How in the world did I turn into your student?" Pop. Frenzied, Zhao Zhan finally reached the limits of his tolerance, and his will wavered before vanishing from the spot. Seeing the other party's will vanishing out of embarrassment, a glint flashed across Zhong Xian's eyes. "You knew why I am crashing this master teacher pavilion, and yet, you still chose to hold me back. If I didn't choke you with my words, who else should I choke? Since I am here to crash the pavilion, I might as well go all the way with it." Outside the master teacher pavilion. Seeing the light on the master teacher tower, Wu Shi remarked, "The second floor has lit up. It seems like Principal Zhong has encountered Elder Zhao. Elder Zhao has a deep comprehension of battle techniques, achieving a level unmatched by any other in our Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion. Even if Principal Zhong is able to clear his test, it'll probably take quite a while." Wu Shi had lived in the Qingyuan Empire all his life, so he was familiar with the various tests in the Master Teacher Tower as well. "Who?" Just as Wu Shi was analyzing the situation, the light on the second floor abruptly extinguished. The moment a challenger stepped into one of the tests, the corresponding floor would light up. When the test was cleared, the light would automatically be extinguished. He cleared the test. Wu Shi was taken aback. He had thought that Zhong Xian would take some time before he was able to clear Elder Zhao's test, but who could have known that he would actually be so fast? To clear a test within just 3 minutes, when did 8-star master teachers become so easy to deal with? The second floor has lit up again, someone within the crowd exclaimed in shock. Raising his gaze to take another look at the master teacher tower, Wu Shi was stunned. The light of the second floor, which had just been extinguished a moment ago, suddenly lit up again. For the light to suddenly return, did it mean that Zhong Xian did not actually clear the test? But if that was the case, why would it be extinguished in the first place? Just as everyone was bewildered by the bizarre happenings, Pavilion Master Go suddenly spoke. "Wait a moment, the color is different. That color should belong to Elder Han of the third floor." Taking a closer look, Wu Shi realized that there was indeed something amiss. The color that had lit up previously was yellowish-orange, whereas the one that had just lit up was milky white. That should have been the color to represent Elder Han's test. Elder Han is a master teacher who left the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion 8,000 years ago, and even though he's an 8-star low-tier master teacher as well, he possesses capabilities surpassing those of Elder Zhao. That is why he has been tasked with the responsibility of guarding the third floor. So, why would he suddenly appear on the second floor? Pavilion Master Go's voice was tinged with confusion. Wu Shi and the rest of the gathered crowd frowned in bewilderment as well. Under normal circumstances, The light will only be extinguished when the test has been cleared, and the challenger will move on to the next floor. The location of the tests shouldn't change. Pavilion Master Go analyzed. However, halfway through his words, his body suddenly stiffened as his mouth opened wide, and his eyes bulged in disbelief. Or does this mean that the will of Elder Zhao has dissipated? Dissipated? That's right. According to what I know, if the will of the predecessor guarding a certain floor of the master teacher dissipates, the other predecessors guarding the floors above will automatically slide down to take his place, Pavilion Master Go said hoarsely. But it should just be a simple test, so why would Elder Zhao's will dissipate? Considering that there was no fight involved in the tests of the Master Teacher Tower, there should have been no way that the wills of the predecessors would dissipate all of a sudden. What could possibly be happening within? Just as the crowd was bewildered by the absurd situation, the milky white glow suddenly flickered before vanishing altogether. After which, a light blue glow lit up on the second floor. Elder Han's will has dissipated as well? Pavilion Master Go was dumbstruck. In the next moment, everything suddenly struck him simultaneously like a bomb exploding in his mind, and he abruptly leaped up in a panic. This is a disaster. Quick, we need to stop Zhongshe from carrying on. Our Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion only has this many experts in its history. If all of their wills dissipate, our Master Teacher Pavilion will really be a goner. On top of serving as the final line of defense against pavilion crashing, the wills of the predecessors also served to clarify the doubts of the master teachers. With the extensive knowledge they possessed, they could be considered the greatest asset of their Master Teacher Pavilion. If they disappeared as well, the days of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion would truly be over. It's impossible to stop him at this point. The headquarters have given Principal Zhong the permission to crash the pavilion, and we would be flouting the rules if we intervened. Wuxia panicked upon realizing the severe implications of the situation as well, but due to the rules set in place, there was nothing they could do. Can't we just admit our defeat? Pavilion Master Go was so flustered that it seemed as if he would burst into tears at any moment. That might work. Wuxia pondered for a moment before swiftly nodding. As long as our Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion officially acknowledges that he has successfully crashed the pavilion, there will be no need for him to challenge the Master Teacher Tower anymore. If so, we will be allowed to head in and stop him. Hearing those words, Pavilion Master Go whipped out his Pavilion Master token, bit his finger, and dripped a droplet of blood on it. Wang! A brilliant burst of light rose into the sky. Hong Long! An overwhelming aura descended from the sky, placing immense pressure on those standing beneath. Following which, a grand voice echoed in the air. The Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion officially surrenders to Master Teacher Zhongxian, and I seek permission to end the pavilion crashing. Ah, there's no need for it anymore. He has already finished his pavilion crashing. At that moment, Jia, the doors to the Master Teacher Tower suddenly opened. Zhongxian emerged with a look of bewilderment on his face. What is wrong with your Master Teacher Tower? Why are all of the predecessors cramping up the second floor? Chapter 1186, 7-Star Master Teacher. Hearing Zhongxian's question, Pavilion Master Go spurted a mouthful of blood. He felt so stifled that he could have gone insane on the spot. With this, his dream of retiring peacefully had been utterly shattered. He was probably the very first pavilion master in history to have the wills of all the predecessors dissipate under his leadership. After a long moment of silence, Pavilion Master Go finally suppressed the indignation in his heart and bowed deeply. Zhongshe, since you have successfully crashed the pavilion, you can raise any request. As long as it isn't at odds with our fundamental values as master teachers, our Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Empire will surely heed your orders. To be honest, Pavilion Master Go really felt that he was unlucky. There had only been 3 successful pavilion crashes in the long history of the Master Teacher Pavilion, and never had he dreamed that he would be the 4th. Vice Pavilion Master Tian has colluded with King Zhongqing to frame me, and on top of that, he has intentionally leaked the secrets of the Master Teacher Pavilion to the otherworldly demonic tribe, causing the death of countless master teachers. His sins are unpardonable, so I want the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion to apprehend him and have this matter thoroughly investigated this instant. Zhong Xian ordered authoritatively. Yes. Pavilion Master Go nodded. Turning around, he was just about to speak when he noticed something and frowned. Where is Vice Pavilion Master Tian? Vice Pavilion Master Tian had been standing next to him just a moment ago, so how did the latter vanish all of a sudden? A master teacher quickly rushed forward. Reporting to Pavilion Master Go, Vice Pavilion Master Tian has left temporarily to deal with some urgent matters. Shit. Pavilion Master Go's eyes narrowed in dread. Comb through Qingyuan City and find him right now. Voila. The 10,000 master teachers swiftly dispersed throughout Qingyuan City. Not too long later, they returned with livid expressions on their faces. Pavilion Master Go, it appears that Vice Pavilion Master Tian is no longer in the capital. We aren't able to find any trace of him. Hearing those words, Pavilion Master Go's face turned completely pale. He had been so shocked by Zhong Xian's pavilion crashing that he had not paid much notice to the fellow beside him. He had not expected the latter to escape while his attention was elsewhere. It seemed like the Vice Pavilion Master Tian knew that Zhong Xian would have him apprehended as soon as the latter succeeded in crashing the pavilion, so he dared not stay any longer. The very purpose of my pavilion crashing was out of indignation of being framed by Vice Pavilion Master Tian. You should know that very well. You should have known that he would escape as soon as I succeed in my pavilion crashing, and yet, you did not make any preparations in advance. Tell me, how in the world did a fool like you manage to become the pavilion master? Zhong Xian's face turned incomparably ugly as well. The conflict between him and the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion originated from Vice Pavilion Master Tian. Regardless of whether Zhong Xian succeeded in the pavilion crashing or not, it was almost certain that the headquarters would investigate this matter, and the latter would be punished for his actions. Despite this, Pavilion Master Go did not dispatch any men to keep a close eye on Vice Pavilion Master Tian, even allowing the latter to come and go as he pleased. As such, Vice Pavilion Tian would have to have been an imbecile to not make use of the opportunity to escape. If a 7-star master teacher were to determinedly conceal all traces of himself and go into hiding, it would be nigh impossible to find him. Pavilion Master Go's face turned completely red. He had intended to make such an order, but he had not expected Zhong Xian to successfully crash the pavilion, and to succeed so swiftly at that. Clenching his fists tightly, Pavilion Master Go turned to the crowd and declared imposingly, "In my name as the head of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, I hereby issue an arrest warrant for Tian Qing. Alive or dead, capture him and bring him to me." Yes. The master teachers swiftly scattered. An arrest warrant from the Master Teacher Pavilion could be said to be the most powerful warrant throughout the entire Master Teacher continent. Once released, all the empires and kingdoms within the Qingyuan Conferred Empire would receive the message, and any cultivator who encountered the wanted individual would be handsomely rewarded for notifying the regional Master Teacher Pavilion. It could be said that with this arrest warrant, unless the wanted were to forever conceal their strength and lie low, it would only be a matter of time before they were found. After making arrangements for Vice Pavilion Master Tian's capture, Pavilion Master Go took out his emblem and declared, "I, Go Tianzi, have let down the Master Teacher Pavilion. Thus, I shall officially resign from my position in the Master Teacher Pavilion and await the headquarters verdict. Until a new pavilion master is nominated, the affairs of the Master Teacher Pavilion will be handled by Wu Shi." Along with that declaration, the energy he had a moment ago seemed to suddenly vanish without a trace. In an instant, he looked as if he had aged several centuries. He had been the head of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion for 500 years, and he had not erred within that period. He really did not expect that he would end up retiring in such a manner. On the other hand, knowing that there was no point in saying anything further, Zhong Xian shook his head and sighed. Even with all the measures taken to arrest Vice Pavilion Master Tian, it would not be easy to find him once more. Thus, choosing to put the matter aside for the moment, he turned to Wu Shi and said, "Wu Shi, here are my 7-star supporting occupation emblems. I meet the prerequisites, so I would like to apply for my promotion to 7-star Master Teacher." After saying those words, He passed the 7-star supporting occupation emblems over. After taking a look, Wu Shi nodded and said, "Principal Zhong, give me a moment. I'll report your situation to the headquarters, so it might take a while. There's no need to hurry. Meanwhile, is it fine if I take a look around the Master Teacher Pavilion's library?" Zhong Xian replied. Even though he had cleared the Empire Building examination, there were still some necessary administrative procedures that had to be completed before he could be awarded with the 7-star emblem. With Wu Shi dealing with those for him, they would not pose much of a problem. Rather than waiting there for the processing to be done, his time would be better spent browsing through books. While he was already qualified to become a 7-star master teacher, he had not browsed through the 7-star master teacher books yet. This would be a good opportunity to do so. Here is my identity token. With this, you should be able to freely access any book within the Master Teacher Pavilion, Wu Shi replied. Considering how Zhong Xian had managed to crash the entire Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, defeating all the master teachers within it, there was no doubt that he was already on par with a 7-star master teacher. Thus, it could not be considered a breach of rules to allow the other party to access the 7-star books using his token while the other party's promotion application was being processed. After accepting the token, Zhong Xian had a master teacher swiftly lead him to the library. The Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion's library did not just contain books concerning the master teacher occupation, there was also a sizable collection on each of the other occupations as well, such as painter, appraiser, and the like. Master teachers prided themselves on being knowledgeable, so it was only natural that they would house a huge array of books in their library. It took almost an entire day before Zhong Xian managed to collect all the books into the Library of Heaven's Path. He started by browsing through the master teacher books before moving on to the Spirit Awakener, Demonic Tunist, Apothecary, Physician, Painter, Beast Tamer, Terpsichore, Formation Master, Appraiser, Celestial Designer, and the others. Naturally, the collection of books on the other occupations within the library of the Master Teacher Pavilion could not be compared to the collections in the libraries of the occupations guilds, but to Zhong Xian, it did not matter how profound or deep each book was. As long as the quantity was enough, the quality did not matter at all. It was not until 3 days later that Zhong Xian successfully assimilated the knowledge of these books with their corresponding 7-star Heaven's Path manuals. As soon as Zhong Xian walked out from the library, Wu Shi stepped forward and passed an object to him. "Principal Zhong, here is your 7-star master teacher emblem." Taking a look at it, Zhong Xian heaved a sigh of relief. After all the trouble he had gone through, he was finally a 7-star master teacher. It was only a year ago that he had been a teacher who was on the verge of being fired, and he had not even heard of the master teacher occupation at that point. Yet, in the blink of an eye, he was already a 7-star master teacher, one of the top figures of the master teacher continent. Time really flies. Principal Zhong, there's still no trace of Tian Qing anywhere. However, I have already reported this matter to the headquarters, and the headquarters have decided to dispatch an envoy to track him down as well. If nothing goes wrong, the envoy should be arriving in half a month's time, Wu Shi informed Zhong Xian. "I see." Zhong Xian nodded. Tian Qing would have surely escaped as warily as he could so as to prevent anyone from tracking him down, so unless a unique artifact was used, it would be nigh impossible to find him. "What about King Zhongqing? Have you captured him yet?" He's currently imprisoned within the cell of the Master Teacher Pavilion. However, he still refuses to speak. Wu Shi shook his head. "It's fine, just keep him imprisoned for the time being. How is the matter of awarding Chen Zhe with accolades coming along?" Zhong Xian asked. Zhong Xian had advised Wu Shi to offer the highest compliments to Chen Zhe instead of punishing the latter so as to lure their enemies into action. But before Wu Shi could do so, Zhong Xian had ended up crashing the pavilion. 3 days had passed since then, so Wu Shi should have gotten it done by now. "Just as you instructed, I conducted a ceremony to award accolades to Chen Zhe earlier this morning, complimenting him for the great contribution he has made to mankind. I also made sure to make his accomplishments as detailed as possible." Wu Shi quickly nodded. Hearing that Wu Shi had done it, Zhong Xian smiled in satisfaction. "That's good. All right, gather a few of the stronger master teachers and follow me. It's about time for us to apprehend Tian Qing." Apprehend Tianqing? How? Wu Shi was stunned. Simple. We'll lie in ambush at Chen Zhe's residence. If nothing goes wrong, the residence should find itself welcoming an uninvited guest tonight, Zhongxian replied. Chen Zhe's residence. Does Principal Zhong mean to say that Chen Zhe wields some secret concerning Tianqing? Wu Shi pondered for a moment before swiftly comprehending the situation. Chen Zhe was Tianqing's student, which made the latter suspicious too. On top of that, Chen Zhe's abrupt death in his cell in the midst of the investigation was extremely curious as well. At this point, Wu Shi was nearly certain that the both of them had been conspiring with one another. I'm not too sure either. This is an idea that came to my mind over the past 2 days. If Chen Zhe did not hold any critical information, there should have been no reason for the other side to go to the trouble of silencing him. While your act of awarding him accolades publicly will reek of a trap, my gut feeling tells me that the other side will not dare take the risk, Zhongxian analyzed. I understand the rationale behind your plan, but, given that Tianqing is already in a precarious position himself, is there a need for him to stake his life just to guard a secret? Wu Shi asked with a frown. If Tianqing was indicted with the current crimes he was accused of, there was a very good chance that he would be executed by the Master Teacher Pavilion headquarters. Since he was already a goner either way, it should not matter whether the list of crimes to his name increased or not. Thus, even if Chen Zhe possessed any secrets, it did not seem likely that Tianqing would risk exposing himself just to retrieve the secret. That depends on how important the secret is, Zhongxian said. The reason Chen Zhe was exposed was because he had duped Zhong Yinqiu and the others of the news concerning the ancient domain and leaked it to the otherworldly demonic tribe. So, if the secret that he holds concerns some confidential intelligence of the otherworldly demonic tribe, Tianqing might just take the risk. This. Wu Shi's body stiffened upon hearing those words. Principal Zhong, could you have discovered something regarding that? Zhongxian shook his head. It's still speculation at the current moment. Over the past 2 days, on top of going through the books that he had collected, he had been pondering over his encounters over the past 7 days in Qingyuan City as well. After some thought, he could not help but feel that something was amiss. It was a little difficult to believe that Tianqing was unaware of his student's affiliation with the otherworldly demonic tribe. Furthermore, as the vice-head of the Master Teacher Pavilion, it was honestly suspicious how Tianqing took no action after learning from Wu Shi that his student had leaked vital intelligence to the otherworldly demonic tribe. Considering how severe the matter was, shouldn't Tianqing have been in a rush to explain himself so as to absolve himself of blame? Or perhaps, did he know that he did not have to do so? All right, I'll gather my men right now. Wu Shi could tell that Zhongxian seemed to have noticed something crucial, so he quickly left the room. A few moments later, he returned with 5 master teachers beside him. 4 of them were elders of the Master Teacher Pavilion, and the last one was a familiar face, Zhong Jiuxiao. As powerless as Zhong Jiuxiao appeared to be compared to Zhongxian, defeated without even managing to land a blow on the latter, his true strength was still formidable. If he were to use all the means at his disposal, especially his 2 Saint Intermediate tier swords and 4 Saint Low tier sabers, there was a good chance that he would be able to overwhelm even Wu Shi. For the time being, just sit around and rest. We'll set off at night time, Zhongxian instructed. Yes, the crowd replied. After witnessing the pavilion crashing, they were all filled with admiration for the young man before them. At this moment, Zhongxian's prestige within the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion could be said to have exceeded even that of Wu Shi. Chapter 1187. Arrest. In a compartment of a tavern by the suburbs of Qingyuan City, a few men were gathered around a table. However, their eyes kept drifting off toward a nearby residence from time to time. Wu Shi sent a telepathic message to Zhongxian. Principal Zhong, that's where Chen Zhe lives. As soon as night fell, they had immediately headed over here. Through the prior, discreet arrangements of the Master Teacher Pavilion, they did not catch anyone's attention. Zhongxian extended his spiritual perception toward the residence to perceive its interior. While the spiritual perception of others was only able to cover a radius of 400 meters, and that was including even the half-leaving aperture realm Wu Shi, Zhongxian's spiritual perception was able to cover a radius of 2,500 meters. He would be able to perceive the slightest movement within the residence from where they sat, so there was no need for them to hide within Chen Zhe's residence at all. Chen Zhe's residence sure is extravagant and sturdy. Zhongxian could not help but exclaim after taking a swift look at it. As humble as Chen Zhe might have seemed in the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, he was still a 7-star low-tier master teacher, as well as the direct disciple of a vice pavilion master. Just by those two identities, he could definitely be considered one of the more eminent figures in Qingyuan City. As if to reflect that, his residence was filled with all kinds of formations, and nearly all of them had reached grade 7. In terms of renovation, his residence was not on par with the affluent King Zhongqing's manor yet, but it was still far beyond that of an ordinary clan. A gazebo on the 5th step, a towering building on the 10th. The corridors meandered like long ribbons, and the roofs were beautifully sculpted. It was hard to tell what Wu Shi did, but the residents did not seem to have been too affected by Chen Zhe's death. On the contrary, it was extremely tranquil and peaceful. Principal Zhong, do we have to make any preparations in advance? Wu Shi pondered for a brief moment before continuing. From what I know, Tian Qing seems to have a Saint intermediate tier artifact in his possession. In terms of its individual strength, it is beyond that of the Golden Origin Cauldron, and it complements his cultivation, allowing him to display exceptional fighting prowess. It's fine. Zhongxian shook his head. Making too many preparations in advance could play against us instead. It would be bad if the other party notices that something is amiss and flees. Naturally, it would have been much safer if they were to fill Chen Zhe's residence with their own formations and men. However, the commotion in doing so might instead deter Tian Qing from biting the bait. But Wu Shi was still a little worried. There's no need to worry. As powerful as Tian Qing may be, as long as his fighting prowess is beneath that of Pavilion Master Go, we should not face too many problems dealing with him. Besides, as long as we can hold him for a moment, we can always call for reinforcements from the Combat Master Hall, Zhongxian said. He had fought Tian Qing in the past, and the latter was not a match for him at all. Even if the latter had a powerful Saint intermediate tier artifact in his possession, Zhongxian was still confident that they would at least be able to protect themselves. On the off chance that they found themselves outmatched, as long as they could hold on for a short moment, the Combat Master Hall would be able to dispatch their elites to reinforce them. Even if Tian Qing was a true leaving aperture realm expert, he was confident that they would be able to subdue him with relative ease. Wu Shi pondered for a moment before nodding. That's true. Knowing that they would be facing a great battle soon, the other master teachers focused their attention on conditioning their state so that they would be able to fight at their full strength later on. A long time later, when the moon was just beginning to set in the west, Zhongxian suddenly stood up and said, "He's here." Wu Shi and the others widened their eyes in alarm. They quickly activated their spiritual perception to take a look, only to find nothing at all. He's already in the residence. Noticing the looks of confusion on the faces of the master teachers, Zhongxian quickly explained, he came from underground. Underground? Everyone looked at Zhongxian with an incredulous look. While spiritual perception was able to pass through obstacles, it would severely limit its range. Thus, it was difficult to perceive items that were beneath the ground. And yet, Zhongxian was still able to discern the intruder so easily. His advancing very warily, choosing to sneak into the opposite residence before using some kind of secret art to dive underground. His movements are subtle, but there's no doubt that he's there. All right, let's go over to apprehend him, Zhongxian said. Back in the Jingyuan City Poison Hall, he had encountered the Earthleaf King, who had the uncanny ability to dive into the ground. In view of that, Zhongxian had chosen to extend his spiritual perception to cover the underground as well, and it was a relief that he had done so. All right. The crowd swiftly got to their feet before flying out through the windows, heading for the residence right before them. They landed at the center of the residence, where Zhongxian carefully directed the master teachers into their positions. After that was done, he flicked his wrist and swiftly placed a few formation flags into the ground. Wang. Zhongxian stomped on the ground and bellowed, "Come out!" Peng. The ground began shaking intensely, and before long, as figure was forcefully plucked out from the ground. The figure was dressed in black from head to toe, allowing him to blend in perfectly with the darkness of the night. However, with their exceptional eyesight as primordial spirit realm experts, the other master teachers could still easily make out his appearance to determine his identity. "Tianqing, it's indeed you." Wu Shi's face turned livid. "You won't be getting away today." Wu Shi's hand clawed forward, and a powerful might burst forth, threatening to tear Tianqing into shreds. On the other hand, Tianqing did not expect that there would be someone lying in ambush for him. His eyes narrowed in apprehension as he quickly raised his arms to defend himself from Wu Shi's offense. Wu Shi's claws gouged deep into the flesh of his hand, but thanks to his timely reaction, Tianqing managed to protect his vitals. After fending off Wu Shi's attack, Tianqing swiftly turned around and flitted away, hoping to escape from the area. "Escape? Do you think that you will be able to escape?" With a light chuckle, Zhong Zhouxiao raised his finger, and a powerful sword suddenly descended from the sky. It was the Saint Intermediate Tier sword that he had in his possession. After listening to Zhong Xian's lecture, while the sword still had not made a breakthrough to half-leaving Aperture Realm yet, its strength had still grown considerably. Complemented with Zhong Zhouxiao's incredible cultivation, powerful surges of sword qi burst forth from the sword, covering a distance of several dozen meters in the blink of an eye to strike Tianqing. Seeing this, Tianqing's face darkened. Without any hesitation, he flicked his wrist and drew a sword as well to deal with Zhong Zhouxiao's offense. After several clashes, Zhong Zhouxiao was forced to retreat in a fluster. As powerful as he was, Tianqing was still an entire cultivation realm stronger than him. On top of that, their weapons were both at Saint Intermediate Tier. Given so, it was inevitable that he would be in a disadvantageous position against the other party. After pushing back Zhong Zhouxiao, Tianqing leaped into the sky, but the next moment, he felt a ferocious might tearing through the space around him, heading right for him. It was the offense from the other elders of the Master Teacher Pavilion. They were all primordial spirit realm pinnacle experts as well, and knowing how powerful the person before them was, they dared not hold back. Whipping out their weapons, they used their strongest techniques without any hesitation. Innumerable bursts of sword qi appeared before Tianqing, forming a massive wall in his path. If the latter continued any further, he would surely be torn to shreds. With an awful complexion on his face, Tianqing knew that it would be dangerous if he pushed on any further. Flicking his wrist, he sent a powerful strike toward the wall of sword qi and made use of the momentum from the rebound to descend back to the ground. Barely after he managed to steady his figure once more, Wu Shi and Zhong Zhouxiao launched their second assault on him. Zhong Xian had prepared a battle plan to ensure that they would be able to successfully apprehend Tianqing. As the two most powerful experts of the group, Wu Shi and Zhong Zhouxiao would be in charge of the offense, whereas the remaining four were responsible for preventing Tianqing from escaping. Watching as Tianqing was slowly ground down under the simultaneous assault of the master teachers, Zhong Xian heaved a sigh of relief. Seeing that he did not have to join the battle, he activated his Eye of Insight and began assessing the surroundings instead. Since Tianqing was willing to the risk going to Chen's residence, it could only mean that there was a secret hidden there that Tianqing perceived to be even more important than his own life. Scanning the surroundings carefully, Zhong Xian suddenly frowned. He walked up to the trees in the middle of the courtyard. They were Saint-tier lingering fragrance trees, known for the lingering fragrance fruits that they produced. Despite being considered a Saint-tier medicinal herb, the lingering fragrance tree was completely ineffective in raising one's cultivation. It was only valued as a perfume. One who consumed it would retain its fragrance within their body for an entire year. To put it in other terms, it was a commodity that only ladies would want. Yet, there were actually 7 of such trees in Chen's courtyard. Even before coming close, Zhong Xian could already smell the sweet, intoxicating fragrance that they emanated. Even he had to admit that the fragrance was indeed very pleasant. If a lady carried such a scent on her, she would surely be able to charm any men. However, what Zhong Xian was interested in was not the trees themselves but the area a Zhongwan beneath the trees. A grade 7 aura sealing formation. Using Saint-tier medicinal herbs in place of formation flags in order to conceal the presence of the formation, not bad. Zhong Xian nodded. In the eyes of an outsider, those might have seemed like perfectly normal trees. However, as a 7-star pinnacle formation master, Zhongxian could easily tell that the positions of those trees formed a unique formation. In principle, it was similar to the aura sealing formation that he had set up previously in Hongyuan Empire to conceal the Byzantium Aelios beast's presence, but through tapping into the strength of the Saint tier lingering fragrance trees, the formation was raised to the tier of grade 7 pinnacle. On top of that, it was also intentionally concealed by the other formations, so if one did not examine it closely, it would have been difficult to notice its existence. Even Zhongxian had only managed to deduce it himself by analyzing the flow of the spiritual energy in the area. A 7-star low-tier master teacher setting up a grade 7 pinnacle aura sealing formation in his residence. Let me see what kind of secret he is hiding beneath. Zhongxian walked forward and stomped forcefully on the ground. Voila! The ground immediately parted, revealing a stone door. Zhongxian placed his hand on the stone door and forcefully erased the inscriptions on it before walking in. Beyond the stone door was a flight of stairs made from a mysterious material that descended into the deep darkness. For some reason, it was impossible to see too far ahead even with the radiance of the night illumination pearls, as if something was absorbing the light. Zhongxian had to activate his eye of insight before everything became a little clearer. It's starluster stone. Zhongxian frowned. After going through the books in the appraiser hall and the master-teacher pavilion, he had gained some understanding of the rare minerals on the master-teacher continent. The starluster stone was a peculiar mineral that had the ability to absorb light, making an area incredibly dark. Of course, through using a unique method, one could release the light absorbed within the stone, making it incomparably bright, as if a star in the sky. It was for this reason that the rock was named Starluster. However, the starluster stone within the passageway seemed to have been altered in a certain manner that allowed it to only absorb light but not release it. Nevertheless, this did not pose too much trouble for Zhongxian. Navigating his way forward with his eye of insight, he slowly made his way down. After walking for around 70 to 80 meters, he finally reached the bottom of the stairs. Raising his gaze, he could not help but be taken aback by what he saw. It was a vast underground chamber. At the very center of the chamber was a huge pool of lava that emitted frightening heat. Fortunately, it was sealed by a massive formation. This? A grade 8 formation? Seeing how the formation was constructed out of unique materials, its grade was surely not beneath those within the Qiuwu Palace. Clearly, it had already reached grade 8. It was one thing for there to be a grade 7 pinnacle aura sealing formation in the courtyard of a 7-star low-tier master teacher, but to think that there would be an underground chamber with a grade 8 formation beneath his residence at that. Something was definitely amiss. Let me see what the formation is channeling power toward. Through his discerning eye, Zhongxian could tell that the purpose of the grade 8 formation was to channel the immense energy contained within the lava to power something. Tracing the flow of power in the formation, Zhongxian soon narrowed his eyes in astonishment. This. Chapter 1188. Tianqing's death before Zhongxian's eyes was a massive altar powered by the formation. It was floating silently in the air, and perhaps because it was not activated, it appeared to meld into the deep darkness. There was an ancient quality to the altar that felt as if it had traversed across the ages. This altar, it's very similar to the one that I obtained from the Scarlet Leaf King. Could it be an altar of the otherworldly demonic tribe? Zhongxian's face darkened. The altar was identical to the one he had obtained from the Scarlet Leaf King previously, just significantly larger. With a single look, it was apparent that the altar belonged to the otherworldly demonic tribe as well. Studying it with his eye of insight, he saw countless inscriptions carved on the altar. These inscriptions were extremely peculiar, being neither in the language of the humans nor the language of the beasts. Nevertheless, these words were extremely familiar to Zhongxian. With just a single glance, he had already recognized them. These words are in the language that ancient sage Qiuwu used to leave behind his heritage. The maps that ancient sage Qiuwu had left behind were in the same language as the words carved on the altar. When these words were structured together in a certain manner, they would be imbued with a peculiar power over space. It seems to be some kind of teleportation formation, serving to teleport otherworldly demons over here. Zhongxian pondered with a deep frown. The presence of this very formation was the most direct evidence to show that Chen Zhe had betrayed mankind for the otherworldly demonic tribe. Considering the scale of the altar, and the sheer amount of energy it was powered with from the Grade 8 formation below, it was extremely likely that it had played an integral role in the invasion of the otherworldly demonic tribe 20 years ago. Otherwise, considering that the subterranean galleries had been tightly sealed, how could so many otherworldly demons have suddenly emerged? From the looks of it, it seems like Tian Qing has betrayed mankind as well. While Chen Zhe was a 7-star low-tier master teacher in the Master Teacher Pavilion, it was impossible for him to construct such a powerful formation by himself while concealing the matter from his teacher, Tian Qing. The only possibility was that Tian Qing was in on the matter as well. In other words, Vice Pavilion Master Tian, the most authoritative 7-star pinnacle master teacher of the Master Teacher Pavilion, had been a spy of the otherworldly demonic tribe all along. Putting it together with the deductions he had made before, Zhongxian came to a realization. And here I was wondering why, despite how honest and humble I have been, the other party still came straight for me. Everything makes sense now. It had only been a week since he had arrived at Qingyuan City, and he had not caused any trouble within this period, unlike back when he was at the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy. And yet, someone had still found such a crude reason to attack him, claiming that his butler was the founder of the Poison Hall just on the basis that they shared the same name. This matter had left him rather confused for quite some time, but looking at it once more, it could have been vengeance for the Skyleaf King and the others. After all, the 10 kings of the Qingtian lineage had ended up dying in his hands. Even if not for vengeance, it was understandable why the otherworldly demonic tribe would attempt to get rid of him. The Qingtian lineage, Tian Qing, King Zhongqing. I should have known earlier. Zhongxian shook his head. The Qingtian lineage had nearly been wiped out by him. 9 of them were killed while the last one was tamed. He should have suspected this from the moment that he learned that King Zhongqing and Tian Qing wanted to deal with him, especially given the fact that Tian Qing was the teacher of Chen Zhe. However, due to their identities, he had only thought that they were negligent in their responsibilities back then. Tian Qing and King Zhongqing. They were probably both from the Qingtian lineage, right? Furthermore, looking back on their records, both of them seemed to have come to power after achieving significant contributions in the war against the otherworldly demonic tribe 20 years ago. Forget it. For the time being, my priority should be to destroy this altar. Once I crush it, it'll be impossible for them to send any more men over. As this matter had great implications, while Zhongxian was confident in his deduction, he knew that he needed to obtain concrete proof before doing anything. Thus, he decided to put the matter aside for now. Flicking his wrist, he took out the Glacier Rain sword. Voila! Driving his zhenqi, he shot a barrage of sword qi toward the altar. In the 3 days he had spent in the Combat Master Hall, he had managed to bring his Heaven's Path sword art to greater heights. If he could raise his Glacier Rain sword to Saint Intermediate Tier 2, even without the use of a formation, he would be able to subdue Pavilion Master Go easily with his sword. Break. However, as Zhongxian's sword qi was just about to strike the altar, he suddenly felt a compelling power wrapping around him, rendering him lightheaded. Following which, an immense might suddenly tugged at his soul, attempting to forcefully drag it out of his body. This. Zhongxian widened his eyes in astonishment. With a powerful force tugging at his soul, he could not continue his attack anymore, and his body staggered weakly on the spot. The tugging sensation on his soul was extremely familiar. He had experienced it once in the past. Kang Shu had used such a technique against him. However, due to Kang Shu's lacking strength relative to his soul, the technique was not able to faze him at all. However, the might that was pulling at his soul this time around was extremely powerful. If Zhongxian let his attention waver for a moment, his soul could very well be nabbed away. Zhongxian swiftly drove his Heaven's Path zhenqi to ward off the force tugging at his soul, and only then did he manage to steady himself. Turning his gaze to the altar once more, he soon understood something. So, this is how they carried out the killings. Without a doubt, Tianqing or the otherworldly demons must have made use of the Grade 8 formation to amplify the prowess of their soul art to bypass the defenses of the Master Teacher Pavilion. Given that it had nearly taken even his soul away, surely it would have been much easier to deal with Chen Zhe and the others. While I was trying to lure them out, they were trying to do the same. No wonder everything went so smoothly. Knowing that there was someone hiding in the area, using the altar to nab his soul and kill him, Zhongxian narrowed his eyes sharply. As socially inept as he was, it did not mean that he was lacking in intelligence. On the contrary, as his soul depth increased, his ability to analyze and decipher situations was getting stronger and stronger. He had told Wu Shi to compliment Chen Zhe publicly in order to lure Tianqing out, and Tianqing did arrive in the end. However, he still ended up being assaulted. It seemed like the other party was no fool either. Perhaps, from the very start, the other party's goal was not to retrieve the altar but to kill him. He had set up this ploy in order to bait Tianqing, but from the looks of it now, it was apparent that the other party had already seen through his ploy. They had chosen to go along with his ploy, sending Tianqing over and forsaking him like a pawn just so as to lure him out and hunt him down. A thought suddenly came to Zhongxian's mind. Could this be related to Vicious? Master, there's no doubt that the soul art is one of my secret arts, but judging from the lack of mastery in the technique, I am certain that it isn't another one of my body parts executing it. Otherwise, as powerful as you are, it's unlikely that you would have been able to survive it, Vicious informed Zhongxian telepathically. Hearing those words, Zhongxian nodded in agreement. As powerful as his Heaven's Path soul art was, it was a pity that he was still too weak at the moment. If the enemy he was facing was truly vicious, the latter would surely have been able to nab his soul easily. But if it isn't another one of the body parts, who else could it be? Zhongxian frowned. In this moment, another bout of dizziness struck his head, and a might even greater than before began tugging at his soul. It seemed like the other party was giving it a second try after the first failure. Perhaps I should just go along with the other party to take a look. Instead of racking his head to figure out whom the culprit working against him was, it would be much easier for him just to let the other party take his soul and see the other party's face for himself. After some discussion with Vicious to learn more about the various aspects of the soul art, Zhongxian walked up to the altar and wrote some things on it with his brush. Only after that did he release his grip on his soul, allowing the might to take away his soul. Who? His soul flew out from his glabella. My soul is currently a little too big. If I go over in such a form, it might cause the other party to put up his guard instead. It would be better if I can compress it slightly for the time being. Zhongxian's soul was nearly 10 meters tall, and if he were to appear in such a form before the other party, he would surely expose his proficiency in soul arts. Thus, with a tap of his finger, he began driving the heavenly art of dimension unravel. In the blink of an eye, his 10 meters large soul became compressed into the size of his physical body. Who? Under the powerful suction force from the altar, Zhongxian's soul was swiftly dragged into it. Wang. With a brilliant shimmer from the altar, Zhongxian's soul disappeared from sight. While Zhongxian was exploring the underground cavern beneath Chen Zhe's residence, Tianqing had been under the relentless assault of the master teachers, and he was swiftly approaching his limits. His body was covered in wounds and fresh blood, and a mixture of desperation and despair could be seen in his eyes. As powerful as he was still unable to cope with the collaborative offense from 6 powerful experts. Tianqing, give up. If you struggle anymore, we'll just have to kill you. Wu Shi harumphed coldly. Previously, Pavilion Master Go had already issued a warrant to apprehend Tianqing dead or alive. If the latter still refused to submit, they did not mind dragging his corpse back to the Master Teacher Pavilion. Kill me. Try it then. I'll make sure to bring all of you down with me. Knowing that it was impossible to escape, Tianqing roared ferociously. All of a sudden, an immense power surged within Tianqing's body, and his body began glowing with a fearsome shade of red. Narrowing his eyes in horror, Wu Shi bellowed anxiously, "This is bad, he's going to blow himself up. Quick, seal the surroundings." The power that a half-leaving aperture realm harnessed within his body was no joke. It could easily reduce everything within a radius of 1,000 meters into cinders. Chen Zhe deserved to die, but his family members and the civilians that lived in the area were innocent. As master teachers, it was their responsibility to protect them. Yes. The crowd swiftly created a barrier around Tian Qing with their zhengqi to contain the might of his explosion. There was no doubt that their barrier would be insufficient to neutralize Tian Qing's explosion, and they could very well incur severe injuries or even die from the shockwave of the explosion. However, if their efforts could at least save the lives of some, they did not think that their sacrifice would be wasted. Just as the crowd had resolved themselves to a bitter end, a voice suddenly sounded from above them. "There's no need to go through so much trouble. Let me do it instead." Raising their heads, they saw a massive cauldron falling from the sky. Pada. In the blink of an eye, the exploding Tian Qing was suddenly crushed toward the ground. On the off chance that Tian Qing managed to turn the tables, Zhong Xian had left the golden origin cauldron outside for the safety of the others. And upon seeing that the master teachers were in a bad position, that fellow immediately rushed forward to deal with the situation. Voila! After pressing Tian Qing back onto the ground, the massive body of the golden origin cauldron suddenly twisted as its cauldron cap opened, and it swallowed Tian Qing without any hesitation. Boom! Shortly after it swallowed Tian Qing, a deafening explosion suddenly sounded within the cauldron. Following which, the cap opened once more, and a puff of white smoke rose from it, as if a burp of contentment. Putong! A tattered body was coughed out of the cauldron. How revolting! It sure is hard to swallow this. The golden origin cauldron shook intensely, as if retching in disgust. However, it soon recalled that it did not have anything to vomit out, so it could only let the matter go. As powerful as Qing Tian's explosion was, it was still insufficient to blow a Saint intermediate tier artifact, especially one like the golden origin cauldron, into pieces. On the other hand, the eyebrows of the master teachers shot up. Wu Shi had gone through many life-threatening situations with the golden origin cauldron, and he knew how powerful the latter was. It was just that he had not expected the latter to become so formidable after its reawakening. To swallow Qing Tian and survive the impact of his explosion. At this rate, it seemed like it was only a matter of time before the golden origin cauldron reached the leaving aperture realm. Zhong Jiuxiao walked up to the corpse and muttered with a complicated expression, "He's dead. Dead." Wu Shi walked up to take a look. He examined the corpse and swiftly confirmed that it was Qing Tian, no doubt about it. However, he still could hardly believe his eyes. Considering how tenacious Qing Tian had been all this while, he found his easy death a little hard to swallow. Chapter 1189. Is someone thinking about me? Bring his corpse back to the master teacher pavilion. Nevertheless, since Tian Qing was already dead, there was no use pursuing this matter anymore. Everything was finally over. Sighing deeply, Wu Shi waved his hands. Tian Qing was a person who had wielded great power. Even though he had only been a vice pavilion master, the authority he had wielded in the Qingtian Empire Master Teacher Pavilion was effectively equal to the pavilion master. It had been a matter of time before the other party was due to become an official 8-star master teacher or even higher. No one had thought that the other party would end up dying here. Life sure was unpredictable. No matter who one offended, one should never offend Zhong Xian. It seemed like his previous decision was correct. Two of the elders walked forward to collect Tian Qing's corpse. It was at this moment that Wu Shi finally scanned the surroundings once more and asked, "Where is Zhongshe?" As the fight a moment ago had been too intense, he had not noticed Zhong Xian's disappearance. "Master went into the passageway over there," replied the golden origin cauldron swiftly. "Passageway?" It was only then that Wu Shi noticed the stone gate in the courtyard. Wu Shi walked up to the stone gate, and after examining it for a moment, he remarked, "This is an aura sealing formation. It seems like the stone gate was concealed by the formation before, that's why we didn't notice it." The formation had the ability to seal all auras, which had previously prevented them from perceiving the presence of the stone gate. However, the formation became undone with the rising of the stone gate, and if they still could not notice it now, they would be unworthy of being 7-star master teachers. "Let's head in to take a look," Wu Shi said as he made his way into the passageway. Zhong Jiuxiao and the others followed Wu Shi in, but before they could venture too far in, they heard a vexed voice. "Help me in." Everyone turned around and saw that the golden origin cauldron had followed them in as well. However, too big, it was stuck at the entrance of the passageway. Its 3 thick legs just would not fit into the passageway no matter how it tried to squeeze in. While the golden origin cauldron could enlarge itself easily, it was not as easy for it to compress itself. The others had to break open the entrance before the stuck golden origin cauldron could squeeze its way into the passageway. Satisfied, the golden origin cauldron followed the crowd happily down the stairs. Not too long later, they arrived at the underground chamber. They swiftly saw the lava and the altar, along with Zhongxian, who was seated on the ground, unmoving. "Zhongsha." The crowd swiftly gathered around Zhongxian. Noticing that Zhongxian was not responding, Wuxia placed his hand on the young man, and his face suddenly paled in disbelief. "He isn't breathing, and there is no heartbeat either. He is dead. How is this possible? How could Zhongxian die within the short period of time that they were fighting against Tianqing? He was a celestial master teacher and a celestial saint. How could he die in somewhere as humble as this?" Just as the crowd was completely bewildered by the situation before them, the golden origin cauldron's furious voice suddenly sounded. "What do you mean by my master is dead? My master is obviously cultivating some kind of formidable cultivation technique, so stop bothering him and scram to the side." Back at the Qiuwu Palace, the golden origin cauldron had once dived into the lava with Zhongxian, and the latter had been in such a state as well. Thus, it was not too surprised by the situation before it. Cultivation technique? What kind of cultivation technique could possibly stop one's breathing and halt one's heartbeat? The master teachers frowned, not believing the golden origin cauldron's words in the slightest. As knowledgeable master teachers, they had never heard of a single cultivation technique that would place one in a state reminiscent of a corpse. Zhong Jiuxiao shook his head, too. How could there possibly be such a cultivation technique in the world? He felt that the golden origin cauldron was only saying those words because it was unwilling to face the reality of its master's death. As an offspring of the Zhong clan, he had seen plenty of mysterious and bewildering occurrences in the world, but a cultivation technique that halted one's breathing and heartbeat and even caused the stiffening of one's body. There was no way there could possibly be a cultivation technique like that. Those were clearly signs of death. Zhong Jiuxiao's words won the approval of the other master teachers in the area as well. The golden origin cauldron harumphed coldly. "Believe whatever you want. If it had a face, it would surely have been showing a look of disdain toward those master teachers. To think that these 7-star master teachers cannot even match up to a cauldron like me in terms of knowledge, what a bunch of countryside bumpkins." Zhong Jiuxiao shook his head and said, "We'll know the truth once I use my zhenqi to check the internal state of his body." Right after saying those words, Zhong Jiuxiao immediately stretched his hand forward and placed it on Zhongxian's body. There were clear differences between the internal state of a living human and a corpse. For one, if Zhongxian was truly cultivating, the zhenqi in his body would surely still be active. His meridians would also be supple, and his internal organs would be filled with vitality. All of this could easily be checked by pumping a surge of zhenqi into the other party's body. As soon as Zhong Jiuxiao placed his palm on Zhongxian's body, he suddenly felt a furious might bursting toward him. In that instant, he felt as if he had been eyed by a ravenous beast, and goosebumps swiftly rose all over his body. Instinctively, he immediately backed away, but it was already too late. A palm harnessing incomparable strength darted toward his dashing face. His face distorted hideously as his body whizzed back with astounding momentum. Bam! Pu! Crashing heavily into the wall of the underground cavern, Zhong Jiuxiao's face turned as white as a sheet of paper, and crimson blood spurted from his mouth. The impact of that palm thrust had been so powerful that a depression of his shape had formed on the wall of the cavern, holding him firmly in place. Tears streamed down Zhong Jiuxiao's face as he cried, "I just wanted to check if you are dead or not out of worry. Did you really have to get so angry and use so much force?" As the victim, it went without saying that he knew whom the palm had come from. It was none other than the dead Zhongxian. "It is not as if I was trying to harm you. Did you have to attack me so mercilessly?" In an instant, An unprecedented feeling of weariness consumed Zhong Jiuxiao. It seemed like ever since he became acquainted with Zhong Xian, he had never lived a single day in peace. Struggling out of the wall, he turned to look at Zhong Xian once more, only to see that the culprit who had cruelly harmed him a moment ago was still sitting on the same spot with his eyes closed. There was not the slightest bit of guilt on his face at all, as if the assault that had happened earlier was none of his business. Seeing this sight, the golden origin cauldron shook its body triumphantly as it gloated in a tone that was practically dripping with "You reap what you sow. I told you that my master is in the midst of practicing some kind of unique cultivation technique, but you just wouldn't listen. He really is cultivating." The lips of Wu Shi and the others twitched in disbelief. They had seen plenty of cultivators who had eccentric cultivation techniques, but this was the first time they had seen something like this. Was there really a cultivation technique like this in the world? A moment later, Wu Shi recovered from his shock and instructed, "Since Principal Zhong is cultivating, let's sit here and guard him. Elder Ji Yu, you should return to the Master Teacher Pavilion first and bring some reinforcement here to seal the area. Also, make sure to report this matter to the headquarters." "Yes." An elder nodded before leaving the underground chamber. The world around him spun and distorted. When Zhong Xian finally came to once more, he was already standing within a tattered hut. The same altar that he had encountered in the underground chamber was still beneath his feet. It seemed like he had been transported to the other end of the altar. He tried to explore the area, only to find that there was a peculiar suction force from the altar holding him firmly in place, preventing him from moving. It would be difficult for him to break free of it quickly. "Zhongshu, we meet again." Just as Zhong Xian was about to scan the area, he suddenly heard a faint voice before him. Raising his head to take a look, he saw a copper-masked figure staring at him with his hands behind his back. "It's you." Zhong Xian frowned. The other party was the person who had brought the Grade 8 painting of the sorrowless old man to appraisal convention to have the seal on it deciphered. The copper-masked figure did not reply to that question. Instead, he stared at Zhong Xian coldly for a very long moment before asking, "You altered the content of the painting, didn't you?" "Altered?" Zhong Xian's heart skipped a beat, but he did not let it show on the surface. With an indignant frown on his face, he harumphed furiously. "How can that be? Putting aside the fact that I do not have the ability to do so, as a master teacher, I would never do something as unethical as that. That would be as good as trampling on the efforts of others, and only the most despicable of scum would commit such atrocities. How can that be?" The copper-masked figure narrowed his eyes as he repeated Zhong Xian's words mockingly. "There are some discrepancies in the painting beneath the seal, and there's also a visible difference in the conception of the painting. Only your consciousness entered the painting throughout the entire appraisal convention, so who else could it be other than you?" Back at the appraisal convention, when he saw that what lay beneath the painting was not what he had expected but a group of ladies bathing, he could hardly believe his eyes. In that instant, he felt that he had wasted many years of his life pursuing the secret of the painting. However, when he returned to his residence and studied the painting carefully, it did not take too long for him to notice that something was amiss. In the first place, the fact that he had been able to notice the presence of a seal concealed within the painting meant that his comprehension of painting was at least on par with Guild Leader Meng of the Painter Guild. Through his careful examination, he noticed that while the artistic style of the bathing beautiful ladies was a close imitation of the sorrowless old man's anchored painting style, there were still some discrepancies between the two. The sorrowless old man had gone to the extent of shaving off a layer of his painting to ensure that the surface remained smooth when he added in the seal. This clearly showed that he had a deep obsession for ensuring the perfection his painting, and he would never allow any flaws to plague his work. While the unsealed painting looked wholesome in the surface, upon closer examination, it was still apparent that the portion concerning the bathing beautiful ladies was leveled slightly higher than the rest of the painting. Furthermore, the colors were slightly more vibrant than the rest of the painting. From these two discrepancies, it was not too difficult to deduce that the bathing beautiful ladies had been added onto the painting recently. Corroborating that with the happenings prior to the unsealing of the painting, given that Zhong Xian was the only one who had entered the painting, it was not too difficult to deduce that he was the culprit. "I must say that you have really misunderstood me. While the bathing beautiful ladies only took up a small portion of the painting, I'm sure that you are able to tell how exquisitely detailed it is. My consciousness only entered the painting for a brief instant, and given that I had to devote most of my time to analyzing the seal, how could I possibly have the time to paint such an exquisite addition to the painting? That is clearly an impossible feat. Not even the sorrowless old man would have been able to pull it off within the limited period of time I had. Zhongxian explained himself earnestly, as if fearing that the other party would not believe him. This. The copper-masked figure frowned. This was also the issue that had confounded him while he was analyzing the matter. All in all, the other party had only been in the painting for less than 3 minutes, and within this period of time, it was nigh impossible to make an addition that fused nearly perfectly into another completed painting. Even 8-star painters would not be capable of pulling off such a feat. But there was no one else could have pulled it off other than the young man before him. Noticing the copper-masked figure's hesitation, Zhongxian quickly added, putting aside the fact that I did not have time to pull it off, I'm also not the only one whose consciousness entered the painting that day. You aren't the only one? Indeed. Have you forgotten it already? Zhong Jiuxiao's consciousness entered the painting as well, only to be attacked by the spirit and sprout durians on his head, Zhongxian said. Hearing those words, the face of the copper-masked figure darkened. You're right. Zhong Jiuxiao's consciousness entered the painting as well. His from the Zhong clan, and surely I need not say much about the capabilities of those from a sage clan. Furthermore, the Zhong clan is particularly known for snatching items by force. Putting aside a painting, they would even snatch a living human without any hesitation. Do you remember how he said that he knew a way to decipher the seal? Perhaps, he might have used some kind of artifact to alter the contents of the painting before faking his failure so that you wouldn't suspect him. Zhongxian harumphed indignantly. The Zhong clan. The lips of the copper-masked figure twitched slightly as fear crept into his eyes. Achoo. Shortly after applying some medicine and feeling the swelling on his face alleviating slightly, Zhong Jiuxiao suddenly sneezed. Is someone thinking about me? After being traumatized time and time again, it was reassuring for him to know that he was at least still on someone's mind. Chapter 1190. The demands of the copper-masked figure. After recovering from his shock, the copper-masked figure quickly shook his head and said, No, that doesn't make sense. If the Zhong clan intended to make a move on me, there would be no need for them to do it so discreetly. They would have just crushed me openly. The Zhong clan was known to be the #1 clan of the master-teacher continent, possessing many experts. If they had known about the secret behind the painting, they would have just found him and killed him directly. There was no need for them to go about it in such a roundabout manner. It was true that the master-teacher pavilion did ensure some degree of order and equality in the world, but rules were meaningless before absolute strength. And the Zhong clan wielded such absolute strength to overlook the rules. I don't know how else I can prove it to you, but what I saw in the painting back then was indeed the bathing beauties. Seeing that the other party did not trust him, Zhongxian anxiously urged, If you don't believe me, feel free to ask around. I am known in town for my honesty and humility. Enough. Knowing that it would only be a waste of mind to argue who the culprit was, the copper-masked figure harumphed coldly. There is no point arguing over this now. The reason I have brought you here today is to have you restore the painting. If you get it done, I can consider letting you off. Even though someone had added new content on top of the painting, it should still be possible to restore what was beneath at the hands of a sufficiently skilled painter. This was especially so given that the bathing beautiful ladies had been added recently, and there was a clear contrast between it and the rest of the painting. Given that the young man before him had been able to decipher the seal on the painting easily, achieving what neither him nor guild leader Meng were able to accomplish, there was no doubt that his mastery in painting had already reached the pinnacle of Qingyuan Empire, perhaps even comparable to the sorrowless old man's. If the young man were to work on the painting, there was a good chance that they would be able to restore the original painting. However, Zhongxian shook his head and sighed. It's not that I don't want to help you, but even I am unable to do it. You can't do it. The copper-masked figure suddenly sneered coldly as killing intent lit up within his eyes. It seems that you still haven't understood the situation you are in. You are currently just a mere soul. If your pitiful brain is unable to process what that means, let me phrase it out clearly for you. You are already a dead man. Dead. Horror surfaced in Zhong Xian's eyes. As if he was unable to believe what he had just heard, he exclaimed with widened eyes, "I am dead." He quickly lowered his head, only to see his translucent body. In that instant, his vision darkened, and he fainted from shock. Seeing the other party's actions, the copper-masked figure clawed at his hair in frenzy. Given that he had used a secret art to nab away the other party's soul, anyone who did not have a screw loose should have noticed what was going on. To put on such an elaborate act and even faint on the spot. Brother, do you think that I don't know that souls can't faint? Under normal circumstances, given that the young man's soul had been bound in place and his physical body was already dead, shouldn't the young have been eager to heed his commands? To put on such an act? What the heck was going on? Suppressing his urge to rush forward and tear the young man before him apart, the copper-masked figure clenched his jaws and spat coldly, "Stop your act. Without my permission, you won't even be able to commit suicide, let alone faint." "Ah! I can't faint here." Zhong Xian sat back up regretfully before shaking his hand leisurely. "Forget it, I won't faint for the time being then." However, I was really not lying to you when I said that I am unable to restore the painting to its original state. Hidden within the painting was Kong Shi's silhouette. Considering the implications of the matter, there was no way he would restore the painting to its original state. On the other hand, seeing the other party shrug away his fainting act without the slightest bit of embarrassment, the copper-masked figure felt so furious that he could have exploded from rage at any moment. It took him a few large breaths before he managed to suppress his rage. Narrowing his eyes, he spoke in a callous tone. "Don't think that I have no way of dealing with you just because you are a soul. Since I was able to drag you here, naturally, I know of ways to put you through suffering that would make you wish that you were dead. Since I am already dead, why don't you just have me killed once and for all?" Zhong Xian replied leisurely, paying no heed to the copper-masked figure's threats at all. "You." The copper-masked figure's breathing hastened from anger, and his chest fluctuated intensely. "Since you don't know what is good for you, I'll just have to use soul search on you then. For your arrogance, I shall make sure that your soul dissipates for good." Voila! Right after saying those words, he grabbed forward, and a powerful might suddenly burst forward. Seeing the movements of the copper-masked figure, a glint flashed across Zhong Xian's eyes. That's a soul oracle technique. The main reason he had allowed himself to be captured by the copper-masked figure was to see who the other party was and what the other party was up to. He did not think that the other party would actually be able to utilize the means of a soul oracle. TZZZZZZ. As shocked as Zhong Xian was, he did not resist the copper-masked figure's offense. Instead, he allowed the latter to enter his mind easily. This was because he could tell with a glance that it was not soul search but soul read. Soul search was an extremely violent technique. It allowed one to learn what was in the mind of another, but in the process of doing so, it would destroy the other's soul as well, resulting in death. On the other hand, soul read was much less powerful than soul search, but it would not harm the soul. It seemed like the copper-masked figure still hoped that Zhong Xian would be able to restore the painting for him, so he dared not kill him straight. "Let me see what you know." Harumphing coldly, the copper-masked figure delved his consciousness into Zhong Xian's mind, and very soon, he found what he wanted to know. A frown emerged on the forehead of the copper-masked figure as he muttered in disbelief. "You really don't know the secret behind the seal." Through his soul read, he could tell that the other party really knew nothing about the content beneath the seal. In other words, he was not the perpetrator who painted on the bathing beautiful ladies on the painting. Furthermore, in his search, he had found that despite the other party's brazen personality, he was really an upright and talented master teacher. "It looks like I have really gotten it wrong this time around." After seeing all that, the copper-masked figure retracted his consciousness from Zhong Xian's mind. He had been extremely certain that it was the young man who had altered the painting before, but the evidence before him had smashed the theory to pieces. However, since he had already captured the young man, he should at least get the young man to restore the painting for him. Otherwise, His effort over the years would have really been in vain. He really is a soul oracle, and from the looks of it, it seems like he has a close relationship with Tianqing and the others. While the copper-masked figure was reading Zhongxian's mind, Zhongxian was also secretly reading the other party. His understanding of soul arts was much higher than the copper-masked figure's, so it was not too difficult for him to bypass the other party's mental defense. Nevertheless, for fear of alarming the other party, he only probed at the surface of the other party's mind, so he only received some basic information. Based on the results he had received, the copper-masked figure had a very close relationship with King Zhongqing and Tianqing. That was how he had managed to convince Tianqing to snoop into Chenji's residence despite knowing the dangers to lure their group here while he hid at the altar, preparing to nab Zhongxian's soul when the opportunity was ripe. I was initially intending to conduct a soul search, but out of mercy, I'll give you one last chance. Right now, you have two options before you. Knowing that the young man before him really knew nothing at all, the copper-masked figure harumphed in disdain. The first option, restore the painting for me, and not only will I spare your soul, I'll also bring you back to life, granting you greater power than you possess at the moment. The second option, succumb to my soul search and vanish from the face of this world. Your mastery in painting is indeed praiseworthy, but there are plenty of painters in the world who are more skilled than you. Even without you, it's only a matter of time before I manage to restore the contents of the painting. You'll bring me back to life? Zhongxian asked in bewilderment. That's right. The copper-masked figure waved his hand, and a body appeared before his eyes. This is known as a soulless metal humanoid. As long as you accomplish what I ask of you, I'll allow your soul to reside in it, and through it, you will be able to continue living and existing as an ordinary human. Soulless metal humanoid. Zhongxian was surprised. He could tell that the other party's soulless metal humanoid was of a far higher grade than what he had seen before, most probably crafted with the body of a primordial spirit realm pinnacle expert. Not only so, the craftsmanship was also particularly exquisite, making it reminiscent of a real human. If a soul were to be deposited into it, the average 7-star master teacher would not even notice that it was an artificial body. Seeing Zhongxian's astonished expression, the copper-masked figure smirked gleefully. Even if you don't have much of an understanding of the soul oracle occupation, as a master teacher, you should have at least heard of the soulless metal humanoids, right? With it, not only will your current fighting prowess be enhanced, more importantly, I will also grant you a different identity and place you in a position of great power. Place me in a position of great power? Could it be that both Tianqing and King Zhongqing are soulless metal humanoids? Zhongxian's eyes narrowed in shock. To be able to become the vice head of the Master Teacher Pavilion, there was no doubt that Master Teacher Tianqing really did exist. There was no way the Master Teacher Pavilion would make the huge error of allowing a soulless metal humanoid to become a vice pavilion master. However, it was possible that the real Tianqing had been killed at some point in time, and his body had been forged into a soulless metal humanoid. Through using a soul to drive Tianqing's soulless metal humanoid, the enemy would be able to impersonate him, assuming the powerful role as the vice head of the Master Teacher Pavilion. Furthermore, there would be no one who would check on his identity as he was already verified to be a human. That might have been the case for King Zhongqing as well. If that was truly the case, this would really be frightening. Just thinking about how the fake Tianqing had been able to fool the eyes of the others for so many years, only exposing himself in order to kill Zhongxian. How many more undercover spies did the enemy have? It was no wonder the Master Teacher Pavilion had destroyed the Soul Oracles without any hesitation. If the Soul Oracles had truly attempted to plot their vengeance, just this ability of theirs would throw the Master Teacher Pavilion into huge chaos. Just imagine being put in a state where one could not recognize who was a friend and who was an enemy, being forced to doubt everyone. King Zhongqing isn't a soulless metal humanoid. It isn't as easy to forge one as you think. The copper-masked figure refuted Zhongxian's words. He isn't. The copper-masked figure harumphed disdainfully. He's just a loyal dog. Then, what about Tianqing? Zhongxian asked on. Tianqing? At this point, the copper-masked figure sneered coldly before turning toward Zhongxian. Do you wish to see my face? Zhongxian's heart skipped a beat upon hearing those words. Keeping his calm, he said, I do. Given the current situation, it's really hard for me to trust you. As you have said, I'm already dead. I have nothing else to lose, and there's no need for me to go all out to help the person who killed me. He had been curious about the true identity of the copper-masked figure for a very long time, but the latter had never used a battle technique before him. The previous soul search had not registered as a battle technique to the Library of Heaven's Path, so he was not able to compile a book on the other party through that. As such, he still had no idea whom the copper-masked figure truly was. It would be best if he could convince the copper-masked figure to take off his mask. Humph. Tough words for a person in my grasp. You might be dead already, but your soul is still in my grasp. As long as I wish to, I can put you through suffering beyond your imagination, the copper-masked figure sneered as he slowly took the mask off his face. At this point, the young man before him was already no threat. Firmly bound to the altar, he could claim the young man's life any time he wanted to, so he did not fear the latter's retaliation. Thus, it was not a big deal for him to show the other party his appearance. Zhongxian stared intently at the face of the copper-masked figure as the mask was slowly pried open. A look of disbelief gradually crept onto his face. How could it be you? Chapter 1191, I am the Qingtian Emperor. The person before him was none other than Tian Qing, but wasn't the other party fighting with Wu Shi and the others? More importantly, the first time he met the copper-masked figure, Tian Qing had definitely been confined within the Master-Teacher Pavilion's prison. No matter how powerful Tian Qing was, there was no way he could escape from his cell without alarming the Master-Teacher Pavilion, so, how could he possibly be the copper-masked figure? Zhongxian could not believe his eyes. Everything had already exceeded his expectations. Indeed. Tian Qing and I are the same person. Tian Qing nodded. The young man before him had been putting on a fearless and nonchalant exterior ever since he had been dragged here, so he was delighted to see the shocked expression on the other party's face. No, that's not right. You aren't Tian Qing but the Qingtian Emperor, right? Frowning, Zhongxian revealed his deduction. He had been thinking over the issue over the past few days, and he was confident that the Qingtian Emperor had a part to play in his framing. Else, there was truly no reason for King Zhongqing and Tian Qing to go to such lengths to frame him. Just that, there were still some details that he had yet to make sense of. You are an intelligent person. However, you should know that there are some things in the world that you should never meddle with. Hearing Zhongxian's words, the Qingtian Emperor's voice suddenly grew deep and sinister. A burst of killing intent suddenly swept through the surroundings, leaving one feeling as if one had been suddenly plunged into hell. The killing intent was even purer than the Skyleaf King's. Those who possessed weaker mental fortitude could have very well fainted as soon as they came into contact with this overwhelming aura. Since you have already figured out who I am, there's no need for me to put on an act anymore then. I am sure you should know about the irreconcilable conflict between the otherworldly demonic tribe and the darned humans. Submit to me, and I can grant you a life of wealth and power. Otherwise, I will have no choice but to end your life. Tian Qing did not deny Zhongxian's accusations. Instead, he gazed down upon Zhongxian as if he was looking at a mere corpse. Since everything had already been revealed, there was no need to beat around the bush any longer. If you are both the Qingtian Emperor and Tian Qing, then who is the person fighting outside with Wu Shi and the others? You, as an otherworldly demon, no matter how good you are at disguising, surely the headquarters would have looked into your background when you became the Vice Pavilion Master, so how could you possibly have passed their checks? Zhongxian uttered in disbelief. No matter how he thought about the matter, it just did not make sense. It might be possible for the Qingtian Emperor to act as an ordinary master teacher. The headquarters could not possibly check the background of every single master teacher spread across the master teacher continent after all, but he wielded great power over the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion. It was extremely difficult to believe that the headquarters would make such a severe oversight. If the Master Teacher Pavilion was really so incompetent as to remain unaware when the otherworldly demonic tribe had already seeped into their ranks, it would have been destroyed long ago. With a cold sneer, hostility welled up in the Qingtian Emperor's eyes as he harumphed menacingly. Tian Qing was the incarnation of my will. I slowly forged his identity as a master teacher step by step over a long 800 years, but who would have thought that you would ruin the preparations that I made? Do you know how much I want to kill you right now? In order to build up Tian Qing, he had paid an extremely heavy price, sacrificing the lives of many of his tribesmen. If not for the damned young man before him, Tian Qing would still have been the vice-head of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, wielding great power. In a short few days, 800 years of his effort had gone down the drain. How could he possibly take something like that lightly? However, it was fortunate that it was not all in vain. Over the years, he had managed to gather plenty of crucial intelligence, allowing him to obtain the various items that he required. At this point, he was just one last step away from success. If not for that, he would have surely killed the young man before him without any hesitation instead of wasting so many words on him. Incarnation of your will? Zhong Xian was taken aback from a moment before swiftly coming to a realization. In his previous battle against Tian Qing, he had found that there was a fatal flaw in the other party's primordial spirit, which made it highly unlikely for the other party to ever reach the leaving aperture realm in his lifetime. Back then, he had thought that the other party might have just erred in his cultivation somewhere along the way, but it turned out that the error was actually fundamental. As the incarnation of a mere will, it went without saying that the soul was bound to be incomplete. It was already a miracle that Tian Qing could cultivate to the primordial spirit realm with an incomplete soul. Any further than that was nigh impossible. Perhaps due to Tian Qing being an incarnation, the Library of Heaven's Path considered him a separate existence from the Qingtian Emperor, resulting in its inability to draw the links between the two. From the start to the end, Zhong Xian had never considered such a possibility before because of the sheer impossibility in it. A will was effectively a fragment of a soul, so it was fundamentally of the yin attribute. It was fatal for a newborn baby to be plagued with yin energy, and the chances of survival were practically null. Furthermore, such an incarnation was against the laws of nature, an act that the heavens would not condone. Thus, even if the baby survived by some chance, one would have to pay a heavy price in order to prevent the baby from dying. As such, even if the occupation that boasted the greatest understanding of souls, the soul oracles, were to attempt to reincarnate a will, it was likely that there would not even be a single successful case out of 10,000 attempts. Otherwise, Mo Hunsheng would not have been so desperate to fuse together with the Nine Hearts Lotus to gain a new body for himself. On top of that, a will would automatically go into a dormant state upon reincarnation. There were those who were unable to unlock the memories of their previous life until the moment of their death, thus achieving nothing significant in their lifetime. Such a symptom was known as the void of reincarnation. To make matters worse, the attempt to reincarnate one's will was also highly damaging to one's soul. This effectively limited each person to a single attempt in their lifetime. As such, only those who had been cornered would resort to will reincarnation, hoping that the infinitesimal possibility of success would come their way. To think that the Qingtian Emperor not only succeeded, but his incarnation grew to become a 7-star pinnacle master teacher, governing the master teacher pavilion of a conferred empire. While the Qingtian Emperor must have assisted in some ways, it was still a particularly formidable feat the Qingtian Emperor harumphed coldly. That's right. I advise you not to test my patience. Since I have already revealed my identity to you, you should know that unless you submit to me and seal a soul contract with me, there's no way that you are getting out of this. I'll put you through endless torture and... The reason he fearlessly revealed his identity before the young man was because he did not fear the latter leaking the secret. Everything was within his control. If the young man attempted anything, it would only take a single thought for him to kill the lad. Fine, I'll submit. Zhong Xian interrupted the Qingtian Emperor's words. Ah! The Qingtian Emperor was taken aback. Having lived among the humans for many years, he knew how firmly master teachers held onto their beliefs and faith. Considering how arrogant the young man before him was, going to the extent of even crashing the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion upon being accused of siding with the enemy, he had thought that it would be a long fight to get the latter to submit to him. Who knew that the latter would agree to it so heartily? What happened to the unwavering will that master teachers should have? The Qingtian emperor eyed Zhongxian suspiciously for a moment before harumphing coldly. Words are empty. Offer your soul. As skeptical as he was about the young man's intentions, he knew that once the latter offered his soul to him, there was no way the latter would be able to betray him anymore. Of course, Zhongxian nodded. But before that, I would like to confirm one thing first. Will you really give me a suitable soulless metal humanoid so that I can continue living as I did? The Qingtian emperor waved his hand derisively. You don't have to worry about that. In the end, it seemed like the young man was just another spineless coward who would abandon his beliefs and faith for his own life. But again, the threat of death was indeed scary, especially to cultivators who boasted long lives. The older one became, the more vivid one's fear of death and losing everything they had would become, and not even master teachers were spared from this rule. That was also how Yushu had ended up succumbing to the otherworldly demons back then. Then, Zhongxian hesitated for a brief moment before mustering his courage to ask, "Can you tell me the method of entering a soulless metal humanoid and let me give it a try first? I want to confirm that there's indeed a way for me to continue living before I submit to you." This. The Qingtian emperor frowned. Somehow, he felt like Zhongxian was up to something. However, looking at the young man's innocent face, he suddenly recalled the memories he had seen in young man's head earlier, and since it was impossible for the young man to turn the tables against him, he eventually relented with a nod. All right then. The method to entering the soulless golden humanoid is very simple. The Qingtian emperor swiftly explained the method to enter and control the soulless metal humanoid. All right, I got it. Seeing that the other party's explanation was essentially similar to what he had learned from Mo Hunsheng, Zhongxian nodded. In truth, he had already compiled a Heaven's Path manual regarding controlling a soulless metal humanoid, and he had even practiced it before. In fact, this was the very method that he had used to place his severed soul into the Nine Hearts Lotus to make his clone. After which, Zhongxian pretended to struggle but to no avail. With a helpless tone, he said, "Set me free for a moment. I want to try entering the soulless metal humanoid. Don't try to pull anything. I am the one who forged the soulless metal humanoid, so it goes without saying that I have a way to destroy it as well. Don't naively think that you will be able to go against me just because you have gained a body," the Qingtian emperor warned callously. Zhongxian shook his head and sighed deeply. As a Saint Tudan cultivator, I won't be able to tap into the full strength of the soulless metal humanoid no matter how powerful it is. I won't be a match for you even if I do try to pull something. Hearing those words, the Qingtian emperor hesitated for a moment before eventually nodding. It seemed like he was really being too jumpy, worrying over the most insignificant of issues. The other party was right. As a Saint Tudan cultivator, the other party could not possibly tap into the full strength of the Saint 4Dan soulless metal humanoid. Since that was the case, what did he have to fear? Thus, with a light flick of his hand, the altar gleamed brilliantly. Following which, Zhongxian felt the bindings holding him in place loosening, allowing his soul to move freely. "Let me give it a try," Zhongxian said as he made his way over to the soulless metal humanoid. A moment later, the soulless metal humanoid opened its eyes. Zhongxian tried moving in it a little, and it felt no different from controlling a puppet. He could not help but shake his head in disappointment. It seemed like a Saint 4Dan soulless metal humanoid was still ultimately a mere puppet. A real human had senses that allowed him to receive information from his surroundings, but a puppet did not. While it was possible for a soul to survive by housing itself within a puppet, it was effectively no different from driving a corpse. It was no wonder few would choose to learn soul arts despite the great longevity of soul oracles. There was more to life than to just continue existing. If a cultivator had to live amid the darkness for their entire life, deprived of everything that made them feel alive, perhaps death would have been a better option. Watching as the young man entered the soulless metal humanoid, the Qingtian emperor heaved a sigh of relief. He had attempted to use his words to distract the young man from it, but the fact was that as the creator of the soulless metal humanoid, he wielded absolute control over it. In other words, it was just another cage to encase the young man's soul. If he willed it so, he could kill the other party whenever he wanted to. Nevertheless, to be absolutely safe, he still wanted to bind the young man with a soul contract. Thus, he turned to the other party and said, "Now that you have tested the soulless metal humanoid for yourself, it's about time for you to offer your soul." "All right." Zhong Xian nodded. Maneuvering the soulless metal humanoid to the altar, he said, "I'll be offering my soul to you through this altar then." After saying those words, a will slowly rose from the glabella of the soulless metal humanoid. Yuan, not expecting the young man to be so active about this issue, the Qingtian Emperor nodded in approval. He also walked up to the altar and drew his soul out of his body. As he cultivated the soul cultivation techniques from the soul oracles, his soul harnessed incomparably frigid yin energy, leaving others not daring to approach. The foundation of a soul oracle lay in their soul, so it would be better to bind the young man's soul to his soul instead of his body. "Start the ritual," the Qingtian Emperor declared loudly. He had thought that it would take more effort to deal with this young man, but it seemed like the other party was still too young and inexperienced. Once the soul contract was sealed, he would be able to peer into the other party's thoughts. By then, the other party would dare not to formulate the slightest thought of rebellion. "All right." Zhong Xian nodded. He maneuvered his soulless metal humanoid to walk around the altar before abruptly slapping its palm on the altar. Wang. The inscriptions suddenly lit up, and a powerful suction force drew in the soul of the Qingtian Emperor, wanting to devour it whole. Horrified by the changes, the Qingtian Emperor exclaimed, "How do you know the method to triggering the altar?" You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.